Welcome back. It is now the final match of the night here. Day 3 of SI. We're already flying through it, but we've got two teams coming up. And I feel like this is a pretty big game in the context of this group, especially, you know, for a team like Bleed to try and grab some points. 8 point, they've already done it. But can they do it again? Can they get more than a point this time? Can they potentially...
They need it.
Can they get a series?
Yeah.
That's the big question.
I mean, both these teams so far have yet to win, have yet to play more than one series. This is both of their second game only, so it's going to be interesting to see kind of how they line up with one another. We've seen very little compared to the teams that we saw just previously, so that'll be the matchup to look for.
Certainly
I mean, I think they've both been tested pretty heavily too, though. Bleed playing W7M, Liquid playing VP that just beat W7M. So even in their first matches, they've definitely both been tested to the limits in that regard. But now coming together, I mean, I just want to see how this pans out.
Yeah, do you want to know what I find most interesting, actually? It's just like kind of talking to the players either on the desk or just in passing. Bleed is actually a team on their radar. It's actually like a team that people are saying you can't underestimate.
Oh, I mean,
look, it's always talked about, right? You can't underestimate anything.
Well, you look in Atlanta. I mean, I think a lot of people were sleeping on Bleed that they weren't going to do anything, and they were pushing a lot of teams to the limit and coming out victorious, obviously coming short to Dark Zero. But, I mean, I didn't expect Bleed to do as well they were going to do, and then they became a fan favorite very quickly.
Yeah, and look, sometimes that's all you need is to start to steamroll a little bit. Let's go ahead and do a bit of a deep dive on Bleed, the team that, for me, I think might be APAC's best hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should be as well, assuming they can see all their players showing up. Currently, we got Reaps missing a little bit here, and the game that we saw from them just yesterday wasn't a great showcase of all their players playing to their highest level. We saw Mentalist playing out of his mind, great droning mental coming through, playing mental, yes, playing fantastically. But the guy that everybody talks about on this team has to be Reaps, and I just didn't see that much coming out from him. It felt like he wasn't valuing his life when they last played yesterday. It felt like he was always dying early. He did get double spawn peaked on one of the rounds on Clubhouse back to back, which is unfortunate. But I think there's no player maybe in this tournament, I don't have the stats for this, feels like there's no other player that spends that long just dead in on cams, because he was dying very, very early, and if he can stay alive a little bit longer, like maybe he can in this series, then he can have insane impact, because mechanically he is nuts.
Absolutely. I mean, if I came back, I'd take that record for sure. Absolutely. I almost forgot how to play at this point. But let's not forget about Julio, though, their coach. He's the only SI champion in here currently. So with the backing from him, being able to also help this team understand Liquid better, because Julio has tons of history with Liquid. So you only got to think about how much is he going to provide for this team, especially going into this game, of being able to get everyone set up, of knowing what Liquid does, how they want to play the game, just the fluidity of how the map is going to run. Like, that's got to be important coming into this.
Oh, yeah.
Look, we've broken down a little bit about Bleed, but now it's time to hear from them themselves.
Hi, I'm Turd. I play for Bleed Esports, and I play the flex/lurk position. In stage 1, we actually missed the major. It was a heartbreaking defeat against Fury. We took the 5 months off season to really get on the grind and focus up. In stage 2, we ended up qualifying for the Atlanta major. We had a Cinderella run, and we qualified for the 6 Invitational. Playing at the Invitational is like a dream come true for a lot of ranked players myself. Our preparation is going well. We had a 10-day boot camp here in Sao Paulo. We got a lot of scrim experience, and we're ready for the challenge ahead. So we're in Group C, the so-called group of death, with W7M, Liquid, M80, and Virtus Pro. The team I'm most looking forward to versing is W7M, because there's no expectations on us, and if we win, then it'll be huge for us and APAC as a whole. JV92, get ready to learn Chinese.
Oh, that's so... Oh my God. That is so entertaining. I tell you what, Turd's got a big mouth. We can say that. That bloke can turn it up.
Oh, I love him. I love Turd.
Oh, man.
He's an interesting one. Oh. Look, if anything's going to go wrong for Bleed here, where do you potentially see it happening?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because when they are on attack, Bleed, and what we saw yesterday in their match, when they lose that opening pick on attack, they really, really struggled. In fact, they didn't win a single round yesterday when they lost the opening pick on attack. They had a 0% recovery on the offensive half. So that's one area, and if, again, we're talking about, you know, Reaps getting double spawn peaked, there is some correlation between these points. Like, we are seeing Bleed lose a lot of bodies very early, it feels like, and specifically on one of those halves, there's been zero ability to reconvert that, to turn the round around after it starts off poorly. So that's what I'm hoping we can see change around a bit today.
And it was their first game, too. So you got to think that they're going to learn from it. They had that day to, you know, kind of just realize realize what they need to do. Even in the W7M game, we're seeing a little more trade potential going on. Maybe it's still not as much where we need to see it, but you can only hope now going into this that we will see more of that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to need to be there. And like you were saying, like losing out on that man advantage is so detrimental to your setup because now that's someone you need to fill, that's someone you need to rotate around. But if you can trade it, then you're just as equal as the other team. Now they're trying to move someone around, you're moving someone around, and then you just got to keep playing that man advantage. And if they can't do that, 100% that's where they're going to be struggling.
Yeah, now we have heard from Turd, you know, from...
Ready to speak Chinese.
What a name. What a name. We've heard the smack talk from them, but now it's time to hear from Liquid.
My name is Paulo, I play for Team Liquid, and I'm currently doing Flex. I'm really excited to play the Six Invitational. Like, all the journey, everything is for this moment. We are playing against the best. We are the best. I'm in my hometown. Everyone's excited. And playing in the front of the crowd is screaming for us. We did it a couple of times, and there's no other feeling, especially here in Brazil. Like, people go mad. It's really insane. Our group is really difficult. We have like lots and lots of good teams, and let's say it's a great test to start the tournament, because if we go through, there's nothing that we can be scared, you know. Virtus Pro, we have, as I said, a history against them, and it's a good history, so we hope we beat them. Mas joystick, te pegar, hein, mano, você tá em casa.
All right, so this is a pretty terrifying matchup in Prospect. There's a lot of things that could go right. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. Do you potentially see something? I'll just ask you the same question I asked about Bleed. Do you potentially see issues that might arise here for Liquid?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem with Liquid coming into this event was going to be their map pool, right? They have a very weak map pool coming through, and in this series, it's most likely they're going to have to play one of Cafe, Oregon, Skyscraper. These are three maps that they have not played well on so far throughout the year. We've seen Bleed really dominate on them, so it's going to be tough for them.
I mean, you might not have the strongest map pool, but look at how we saw VP. If they can just play their game on those maps, maybe not the strongest maps, but as long as they can play a game that if works in their system, you can still make it work. But I do want to talk about a player specifically, Resets. Playing behind people like Palu and Nesk and being able to outperform them, that's got to feel good. I mean, if I was on that team and you're going against two juggernauts like that are on your team and outperforming them, that's got to put some more back spirit and morale in terms of everybody on that team.
You can almost say it might reset them for us. Right, let's go ahead and jump into the map veto nice and quickly and figure out where we're going to be headed for this matchup in particular. Do you have an inkling?
I'm expecting the Chalet pick maybe coming through from Team Liquid, and depending on what they don't ban, so we've seen Cafe and Skyscraper banned, so Oregon would make the most sense from Bleed. As I said, they kind of have to play one of those. Oregon's been very good for them. We'll find out.
I mean, I was going to say Oregon.
There it is. Yeah.
That was kind of obvious.
Shut up.
Bleed have never lost Oregon. Through team history, through 5 plays, they've never lost that map. And while 4 of those matches were against low-level regional opponents, they beat W7M yesterday, 7-5 on that map. So they're obviously feeling comfortable on it. Nighthaven Labs will touch on quickly. Team Liquid, they've never won it themselves. They played it once in the LCQ against Los to make it to Atlanta, and they lost in overtime.
That ban pool really confused me, especially seeing the Nighthaven, like you were just saying, especially in terms of their attacking power not being so strong and letting that slip through the cracks right there. So we're definitely going to have to see the performance from Liquid going into that. Oregon, again, was a no-brainer for both of us. I think that's a very dominant map for Bleed. It's also a very default map that being Liquid, being in the game for as long, it's not anything that's going to surprise you. When it comes to Oregon, it's just figuring out of how you're going to take the entry points, take the engagements, do the trade game, and then come out on top of that series. Then Chalet. Chalet is going to be an interesting one. I think that's ultimately going to come down to the attacks from both teams. But if Liquid, again, if they can't figure out their attacks in these first 2 maps, getting into that last map might not look like it.
Look, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered from here on out. But of course, we don't have to wait any longer. It's time to go to Labs.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I bet you did not expect this, because I surely did not. Hi, I'm Stokes with an empty chair, because Intero is fashionably late. I'm going to be setting things up for this map all alone by myself. So we'll see how good of a bang-up job I can do. Well, first things first here, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, Liquid. They've been looking pretty good so far this event, specifically our main man Resets. He's had an amazing cost. He actually has the #1 cost of this entire event right now at 86%. Also, just to notice, Lagonis is also tied for 3rd in plants with 5. So, as we hop in here, it's going to be Liquid versus Bleed, folks, on Nighthaven Labs. Liquid leading the social queue here with 73%. As you guys at home think Liquid are going to take this, and why wouldn't they? You know what I mean? So, as we're jumping into this now, let's see what happens on Nighthaven Labs. Yeah, why not? Bring it on in. They'll never guess. We have a special guest, ladies and gentlemen.
I think I'll fill in.
Ah, come
until
on
Parker
down,
shows
Emmy.
up. I think I'll sit down here for someone's seat has been left very empty. Who needs notes? Bleed versus Liquid.
Exactly, Bleed versus Liquid. We're gonna get Doki off the board here. I really like this, just because it's a big map. Logic bombs are very good at clearing things out. These globals have been constantly used time and time again, and arguably Doki, the better at one of the two, just really what you're looking for in the moment. Nomad gonna be the follow-up ban, and then Fenrir for Liquids.
Now, Liquid, obviously, I've been able to cast one of their games slightly earlier on in this week. I've been able to see how they've brought some of their game so far, and I think the worrying thing currently for me is not just as the specifics of them bringing the heat and the passion, but the region as a whole. I'm not gonna set off Brazil. I'm not gonna set off them because we still have them as the favorites. But after the back of what happened to WSM earlier, after the back of seeing NIP's tournament, there must be so much pressure. FaZe as well, not quite getting the win out here for Liquid. Sorry, I've just seen Bleed's mascot for the first time. Do we have a name for him?
Yeah. I don't think that we do. We don't, but I'm sure that social media will get that one.
There's the standard mascot.
Joel, I believe, is the official name, right?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
I am curious to see if we have any friends for Joel that show up during the tournament.
That could be an interesting one if somebody bought some more fish from Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah. I love how they keep getting more and more. How do they get a mannequin?
I genuinely don't know, because I saw the tweet from Mentalist getting the fish over here and in his luggage, and it looked like the most terrible thing to try and pack.
I mean, that is just a little bit of insanity. Anyway, enough of that. Enough of the single sort of point I was making beforehand was looking towards, obviously, the pressure that comes through and the pressure that starts to build itself into this game. Liquid, can they set themselves up against Bleed, who have built their own pressures and built their own ideals against this otherwise starting on their defense? Labs, again, a map we haven't seen a huge amount. I think I've seen 2 plays of it across the tournament so far. We've had bucket and buckets full 4 plays. I guess I can't watch every game.
Of course. That's the one hard thing about group stage for us, is we don't get to see the other games we're not casting while we're working, right? So this is gonna be the 5th play here. Right now, 55% defensive overall win rate.
Your husband has shown up.
Oh, man.
I'll pass it over.
I like to look at him more as like an uncle. But not the uncle that you like, the one that you just deal with. You know what I mean, Emmy? She can't hear me anymore.
The beauty of your blood sugar crash.
Oh, you poor man. How you feeling, buddy? Are you okay?
Better.
Okay, good. Well, he's alive.
But better. We will improve.
There we go.
We will improve.
Indeed. All right, well, we're on to Nighthaven Labs, my friend. We got Oregon after this, and then Chalet if we do make it there. Liquid got rid of Nomad. We've got Dokkaebi off on the offensive side. We also don't have Fenrir here as well, but we do have access to a lot of other broken defensive operators. So we'll see exactly what they want to try and bring in here. Get done. We already have the Solus out for Aspie. So we'll see if he can try and deal some solid damage to this drone game, which he already has with 5 of those off the board. Minute 40 here.
Sorry, I'm drinking a non-specific energy drink.
Got to make sure we get those blood sugars back up here so he can thrive and survive, folks, and give you his absolute best here. But speaking of best, turd. Oh my! I take a turd on Nesk. He's gone. We'll have to see what Liquid can do with the remaining last minute 20 here.
Yeah, I mean, immediate thoughts on these operator bans. I like the removal of the nuisance bans. I'm sure you already talked about it here. As now Hoven is gunned down by resets. A map like Nighthaven Labs is very similar to anything else that has closer quarters, especially when you look at an operator like Fenrir or Valkyrie. You could set those up in the nooks and the crannies that were spoken about earlier by Lynx. An eye on the match that I think you were casting at the same time, so you probably didn't listen to it, but that is A-okay. So I like the removal of the nuisance ops, but obviously Tubaru is an operator that I'm going to look at because when we've casted Nighthaven Labs so far through SI, we've seen the effect that he can have, especially on that basement bomb site.
Oh.
Not present here, though.
No, most definitely not. The recoil working back, or angle working back in for the defense. Be able to discover that. Only 30 seconds remaining. I mean, Liquid, they've at least gotten to muster this into a 3 versus 3, but it's going to require some heavy lifting to be able to get this to go off over here. Alu trying to spray things down with the F2. Again, that just starting to make its comeback here at SI. A lot of people favoring that 417 recently, but now Lagonis thinks he may have found a spot to plant, but does he know about the man behind the desk? That's the real question. Reese with one, Turd with the other, and it's all down to Palu, but he can't get it done and bleed with the very first round.
Yeah, I mean, Nighthaven Labs is a map that we saw over the first 2 days was relatively balanced in terms of operator win rates, but those are stats that have not been updated up to this point. So I'd be curious as to see where we are at in terms of overall win rates for the attackers and defenders. It's been talked about ad nauseum that, you know, we're right now in a very defender-sided meta, more so than usual. But a map like Nighthaven Labs strikes me as being relatively quite defender-sided just innately.
Most definitely. I got the stats here for you, my friend, so I'll bring them up right now. We got 2 other maps that are less defender-sided. Consoles actually are least defender-sided at 53%. Cafe following that up with 54. Nighthaven Labs sitting at 55. Overall average right now, sitting right about 60% defensive win rate. What's going on?
So I just think it's funny that Consulate is 53%, Cafe is 54%, Nighthaven is 55, and Chalet is 55. It's like 53, 54, 55, 55. But no, I mean, honestly, given what we've seen from the operators that are available, 55% for Nighthaven Labs isn't really like overwhelmingly defender-sided. That's effectively a coin flip map. And when you compare it to things like, at the time, at the end of yesterday, we had both Cafe and Clubhouse sitting at 60+% in terms of defender win rate. That's far more dominant. 45 to 55 suggests that you can get away with a 3-3-half, and it's not abnormal at all. It's not like Bleed has the advantage of starting on defense here, so we're expecting a 4-2 or even, honestly, a 5-1 half of the time. This could be relatively even. So if Bleed can add another round or 2 to start off 2 or 3 rounds up over Liquid, I honestly think that might be a challenge for Liquid to overcome that in the long run, especially given, and I hate to bring this up, the mental issues that Liquid has had before, tilting when things don't go their way against adversaries that they think they should beat. And I bet you anything, Liquid probably thinks they should beat.
Most definitely. See that angle working in here for Liquid. And I'm in agreement with you as well. Something that we've seen toy with them in the past, and this might start building up on their pressure on that mental side of things, like Parker was talking about. Also going to get taken down by that verticality out of Bleed. And so far, so good for Bleed. They've been able to keep Liquid at the gates, constantly sending them reeling in some of these fights. Nest looking for a little something over here on this side, but not able to find too much. He'll dip back into the conference room to try and play these angles. You can see Bleed, once again, just trying to play this space actively, making sure that they don't have to worry too much about things later on down the line. Don't want to give Liquid too much space, especially on this top floor, as especially this room that Nest is walking into now. Very important for the bomb site. That's kind of a one-man show right now, but now he turns around. You have a couple other people in the area to try and assist him.
The resets will just wait out the remainder of this adrenal surge. The life persists for them. I like the staying power that Finka obviously provides on some of these chippier maps. And with a Legion on the board and a smoke in play, obviously Finka can get you back up when you have these little skirmishes. Now, it can't keep you alive when Reaps does stuff like that, because chip damage is chip damage, but a headshot is an instant death. Sorry, it is.
That's a little different. Definitely need that noggin, as Lagonis will find one as well. That's going to be the first kill on to Bleed. Liquid doing their damnedest to try and fight their way onto site, but this utility setup for Bleed has been going swimmingly thus far. Smoke's out from Mentalist, gonna toss the last one in there, and Hoven still has that last Nitro cell. That's gonna be the key benefactor here for them. If they can try and stop the plant, or at least stop the timer for right now, and get them into a crunch time scenario, they could end up ending this in a pretty explosive payload.
Lagonis has that diffuser and needs to walk in. It only has 30 seconds to do so, and you need cleanup on the remaining players that are stopping you from doing that. Hoven goes down, leaving just Asphy and Mentalist, and there's no smokes remaining, no impacts from Asphy, no Nitro cells. So basically you have to go in and you have to take these engagements as they find themselves vulnerable, and Mentalist can pull it off. He had a life gain yesterday. He'll need to be huge now as he's the last one standing. Engage with Palu. The time almost runs runs out, but Mentalist gets the kill anyway, and Bleed starts off strong with 2 rounds in a row.
Very well done. If that percentage says anything about the defensive win rate, at least, this is looking very, very good for Bleed. As Parker was talking about earlier on, pretty much an even map, especially in this meta of all things where, you know, you look over towards more defensive maps like Clubhouse. 75% defensive win rate right now. With the same operators in the pool, 55 for Nighthaven does not look all that bad now, does it? Now Liquid still forced to try and solve this puzzle from the offensive side of things, and they've not been able to get the ball rolling. I've really enjoyed Bleed's setup with their utility, as well as their identification of where Liquid wants to try and push in through the map. Some early picks in the first round definitely made things a little bit easier when they were playing that basement site, but this upstairs area, mixture of kills as well as utility to keep Liquid at the gates and force them down into this 1v1 scenario. And Mellis handled very, very well into this M590 here. Did risk a little bit there with Paulo on the swing, but nevertheless, still 2 rounds going the way of the defense.
Why does it seem like Bleed as a team is just constantly so surprised when they win rounds, by the way? I mean, obviously, as a team, you do not have the same prestige that a team like Liquid does, naturally, but you're here. I mean, this is 2 events in a row now where you have shown up and you have proven that you are one of the top 20 teams in the world. You got the fish buff. Stop being shocked when you win. Stop expressing like exasperation when you win and be like, I can't believe we did that. It's like when the dog invariably catches the car. It's like, I didn't know I was gonna catch one. Well, guess what, Bleed? You've caught it, you're here. You've won 2 rounds against Liquid on their own Mac. Keep it up.
Absolutely. Maybe one of those things where it's, you know, take it too seriously. Might start losing a little magic that you have by just playing around with the boys, you know what I mean? So, definitely be something for Bleed, as we know they're a good bout of, or rather good group of memers. Let me get it that way. Aspie's going to be playing things out over here on Vending. It's going to be Paulu actually to lead us off this time. Liquid with a positive note in round 3.
Yeah, getting Mentalist off of the board after the game he had yesterday and the game that he's capable of. Now, obviously, he's one of the older, more experienced players on Bleed. You don't necessarily expect him to be the one that does as well as somebody like, say, Reaps or, say, Turdsta does. He's more support-oriented, but if he's playing off-site on Alibi, then either things on Bleed have slightly changed up or Mentalist is feeling himself, and Bleed thinks that they have better success with him playing on that role. Obviously, losing him early on is not great from a gun perspective, but you still have those Alibi clones up. And I know that people might think it's a bit silly, but if you were to punch a barricade and you see somebody there, whether it's a clone or a person, you're going to shoot it. Reaps answers back by taking Volps about 35 seconds after this ensuing fight happens. So that's good, and the Bravo drones obviously are off of the board, but Volps hasn't really been much of a factor on the scoreboard so far.
No, most definitely not. Stun's going out as well as a plant going down for Lagonis here. Have a little overwatch from the defense, but they don't know what this plant is, and it's going to go off without a hitch. Luckily enough, Nest creates enough space to make it where this case can find a home. A 3 versus 3 now as Resets takes that one on the top floor, trying to make sure they can't play through that verticality. With 30 seconds remaining, Bleed have got to hop onto this. Reaps is going to be the first one to attempt. Resets hops in up top, but now he's got the verticality as well. A beautiful angle as Resets takes the top floor, and Liquid find their first round.
Relatively dominant round from Liquid too, right? I mean, you get the early pick, and the one thing I liked about it was that Liquid immediately used that advantage that they have in terms of numbers. They hop onto drones, they get map control quickly, they keep going. Yeah, they get picked off when Volps jumps in, but I mean, like I said, Volps hasn't been a huge factor. You hope at that point, now halfway through the round, that the clutch drones have been able to take some of the gadgetry away. Obviously, the value of Brava that you get is based upon what your opponent brings. If you don't have a lot of gadgets on the board, for example, you can't take over Smoke. He doesn't really bring anything to the table. You can't take over a Black Mirror from Mirror for crying out loud. So you're hoping that the value comes from whoever's there. You saw the lineup right now on defense. You're not really going to waste a Brava drone to take out a Legion mine. You're not going to be able to do anything against the Pulse. So losing Volps early obviously sucks from a gun perspective. But then the rest of the team takes upstairs map control. Bleed doesn't have the ability nor numbers to take back the top floor. And as such, what ends up happening? They get the plant down, they take the post plant, and there's nothing they can do to stop Resets in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say, just from my perspective, a couple of oversights there from Bleed as well, and just the positional, you know, awareness of some of these operators. You really feel like maybe Pulse or Soul should be downstairs in this position to try and stop this, because when you're playing that bomb site, Parker, it does not require a lot of map control to get a plant off. I mean, they just got control of the top security area with a couple of breaches, let resets play around that, and then hopped in the window and let Nest make a bunch of noise while the case goes down. That was literally it.
Yeah.
So you're really hoping that maybe Bleed can try and move some stuff around, and yes, indeed, my friend, we do have a glass.
Sam, do you hear this? Do you hear the starting gun? Because it sounds like we're about to be in the midst of the races. They've opened up a breach. They've got smokes ready. The Candelas are ready to go. A blitz is about to dive into the fray. The bomb site is within reach.
Oh.
And as we said, we're off the races. But you get blown up. Volp's 0-4 to start things off. The blitz gambit does not work, but maybe it was a fake, as Lagonis is getting the diffuser down and doesn't just try. He actually pulls it off with a sliver of HP left.
Lagonis immediately hit the deck, and why wouldn't you? Might be able to find one here. A lot of damage onto Aspie, but he's got to worry about this pre-fire now. They might even toss an impact over there, but actually, second glance, they don't even have another one inside of their back pocket. So Lagonis, he's got to be able to just sit here, but no, that foot finally brings itself out from behind the little metal barricade there. Palu has that top floor presence to try and lock it up, but those Kiba barriers will lock that down. Nesk with a nice shot of his own, able to try and attempt for another one here. All three of these players trying to swing through, but resets the Nesk. They put him to the sword. It's a triple kill. It's all up to Turd to try and get this done now. Nesk with the bailiff, or rather, the bearing in hand. He'll swing it. He won't get the kill, but that's still a round for Liquid.
I started to sweat when Nesk was in that position, but I honestly think the Kiba barrier actually worked against Bleed in that spot. You basically made it so you only had a small window to swing the glass. That's not what you want. Glass doesn't have the ability to spray like a normal assault rifle. So if you have this small angle to peek from, and you stack up to peek it, guess what? Glass is going to take that opportunity to punish you every single time. If you leave that breach wide open, then see, look at the angle that they have right now to play off of. And they're going to basically plug that in a moment, which gives Nest an advantageous position. The Kiba barrier unfortunately misses. Now, if you throw in a second to completely cut off vision, then yes, I think that's a great idea. But a single barrier thrown out by Bleed actively works against them. And frankly, the issue was the rush from Liquid not being stopped in its tracks. I get that. But in the post-plant, you got to ensure that you have everything in your advantage to take the fight.
5 seconds to go.
Most definitely. Yeah, that perspective, not something you want to give up to Glass. You can practically see your entire bottom half before you even get to try and take a gunfight with him. And you do not want to be giving up that info to somebody that can take you down in practically 2 shots. 5 versus 5 now, and it's tied up between these two. And for all intents and purposes, Parker, this is looking like it's going to stay true to its defensive win rate so far, which is, again, just completely blowing my mind with how things have been going so far at SI. I mean, our defensive win rates have been through the roof. All right, so some good camera work here from Palu. Gonna steal a couple of defaults for himself, just make it to where this portion of the map is a little bit more playable for Liquid.
I like that it's off 2-2. And I mean, if you're Liquid, you're kind of kicking yourself after those first 2 rounds, because I think that they were somewhat winnable for this squad. You can't get back around, you've lost, but the best thing that you can do is just ensure that it doesn't happen again and that your focus is set on the next round. This is something that I think a lot of teams overlook. They get tilted from a round being lost that they shouldn't have lost, and instead of focusing up and saying, okay, let's not have this happen again, you just kind of go forward with that bitterness and that chip on your shoulder, and it doesn't ultimately fuel your play at all. It actively works against you.
Absolutely. Something you really have to concern yourself with. That mental game and making sure you got your head in the right place. Same as your heart, man. Everything just needs to be a smooth flowing machine. Volps will take down Oven as he puts his head in a place that it does not belong. He's going to lose it because of it. Nice stun out on the top floor, but not really going to assist much. Just checking for some things. Going to try and this wall open from the far end. No real opportunity for them to try and stop this. Impact out, though, will definitely assist. And that's going to break up 2 of those Selma charges. So very well done from Bleed on the counter.
It opens up a small window, but that's really all you can get. And when you factor in that, you know, you only have those 3 Selmas available, which essentially creates the 6 windows, because each Selma creates 2 different vantage points. you can vault through a single Selma depending on where it gets thrown, or you can crouch walk through it as well. If you're only getting that small little opening, which basically is the same size as that ejected mirror window right there, all you can really do is use it as a kill hole, which, don't get me wrong, the pressure that it puts on a certain part of the map can be quite large, but this is limited value for Liquid, and they obviously wanted to open it up. So now you have to turn your sights elsewhere. The Monty is going to breathe down the neck of Mentalist as they just wait out this toxic gas, which he can continue to throw. He'll get swung on from the left. I don't know if Mentalist has that idea. He's an experienced player. He should have known this was coming.
Yeah. Monty is seldom alone in these situations, especially with so many bodies up for Liquid. It just seemed like a very drastic call there for Mentalist. Now Reeves, oh wow, what a shot from him, but he's immediately gunned down from Garage. They've got the full pinch going on right now. And Aspie, he's gonna try and do his damnedest to batter them back, but Liquid, they're looking too solid in this scenario. Resets goes down, and Palu won't even let him die to the impact. He's too damn slick, as he'll take down the last bleed player.
So 3 relatively dominant rounds in a row from Liquid on attack. Now again, let's go back to that win rate that we talked about. 55% for the defenders, 45% for the attackers on Nighthaven. However, 3 in a row looking the way that Liquid just played is something that those stats don't really speak to, right? We can look at it and say, okay, the defense are winning these rounds, etc. And when this game ends, if Liquid ends up winning 4 rounds on attack, people are going to be rather dumbfounded. But even if Bleed prevails in this round to tie it up and then send us to the second half, Liquid looked much better in these 3 rounds than I thought Bleed did in the first 2. So a round victory is not the same as every round victory. And if Liquid is capable of bulldozing Bleed as they have through these 3 rounds, then I'm a little bit worried if I'm Bleed. And obviously they're not as worried as I am. They haven't called a timeout, which I think is kind of smart. You're not going to call it and talk about a single defense. You're going to wait and see if things go from bad to worse when you swap to attack. But given the fact that this is Liquid's map, and given those numbers, I would not be surprised for Liquid to show the same amount of skill on defense as they are on attack. And that's a worrisome situation for Bleed to find themselves in.
Yeah, most definitely. For those first 2 Bleed rounds, it really felt like it was kind of a discovery time for Liquid to see how Bleed ticks. And once they discovered the way that they wanted to go about things, the whole game has looked different.
I like the amount of drones that we've seen from Liquid too. There's something that we've kind of criticized about teams is that if you don't use your own drones, which of course you get 10 of, 2 each, you've got Twitch as an option, you've got Rogero drones from Flores as an option, and now you've got Brava too. There's no shortage of intel that you can bring in terms of gadgetry from these operators. Teams tend to forego that. Flores' pick rate has gone down quite a lot, I find. But Twitch has still been a mainstay for some of these regions. Now, obviously losing Palu, who might not be a drone, but the Gemini clone from Yana can gain you some pretty good information, is going to hurt what intel Liquid can gather.
I'm sweating bullets right now, Parker.
That was a risky engagement that very much could have blown up in the face of Bleed, but the Keeper barrier actually helps them in that instance.
Did you ever feel 40,000 people clench all at once? Because that's what just happened right there.
I'm still clenched. You know how they create diamonds? Pressure, baby.
Pressure, baby. And that's what Bleed is trying to apply right now, is they might have their diamond moment. 5 versus 2. All up to Resets and Lagonis here. Resets has that 417. We've just been seeing constant back and forth as to what primary we're bringing in here.
No way.
Reeves gets him with the dig of all things. Oh, does he get 2? Oh, he does. And it's a flawless round. Cut it right down the middle, baby. 50-50.
The dig 2-piece to seal that first half. And wow, it was Liquid who was screaming and cheering, now looking quite unhappy after that round. Strategy-wise, it wasn't great. Their entry was quite weak. They didn't drone, which obviously I was just praising them for bringing extra drones. They don't drone. They lose Palu right off.
Yeah, don't use the Gemini either. Palu just like walks in lackadaisically
and dies. Exactly. And then you don't really quite recover if you're Liquid. 2 swift picks by a team that is known to bring the fight to you, as you can see there.
Crazy.
Reeves was allowed to play upstairs on rafters so well because the fight down below from resets doesn't suit him. He's in a bad angle. It's a disadvantageous fight from you to play down below. So Reaps doesn't need to sweat it. He's really safe in his spot up on rafters, or catwalk as some people call it. So even if you do push him from the door, which is what we saw, that allows Reaps to take individual 1v1s. There's no try to get up the stairs to pressure Reaps because you don't know if there's somebody else playing up there on that catwalk. Ultimately, doesn't work out. We have a rehost, by the way.
Yes, indeed we do. Going to take a little bit of time here, but we will hop back in very, very soon, folks. So hopefully it's something that's very easily solvable. But yeah, I mean, especially for that garage position, catwalk is so pivotal to hold on to. And the longer that you can delay, because usually it's inevitable that you're going to die there because teams really, really want that. But Reaps, he did the most with it. I really appreciate him, especially Parker, taking that fight on the door, just, you know, pre-firing things, seeing what was going on out there, but to step up to the plate again and go for that kill, and not only that, successfully gathering it as well, changed the entire pace of that defensive round.
No, absolutely. But this is where you reset, right? You've got the side swap
Resets?
coming in.
Oh, Joel!
You just got fished.
That thing has been around the world, folks. It's been on, what, 3 or 4 separate continents now? Because they probably flew through Europe to get home the last time. So.
I'd have to imagine. But then, of course, you get into that thing where, you know, people talk about, oh, the countries I've been to. And it's like, if you have a connection in a country but you don't leave the airport, have you technically been to that country?
No.
Right? So if they're flying back to Singapore and they fly from Atlanta, depending on the flight path, I have to imagine their flight path probably took them west. I would imagine like you'd go from Atlanta to LA and then LA somewhere.
Probably so, yeah.
I've never flown to Singapore, to be honest, so I don't really know. The only time I've ever actually been to Asia was when you and I went to Japan for the Tokonami finals, and I literally flew over the world. I flew from Canada, literally over the North Pole, and then down into Hong Kong. So for me, I don't know. I can't speak from experience either way. It has obviously been all over the world. The thing's like $20 too, which is the funniest part. I think somebody went to the Bass Pro Shops in Atlanta when we were there, and it was like $24.99.
You heard that we actually forced that Bass Pro Shop out of stock on that fish, right? Like they were completely sold out by the end of that event.
I saw a couple of them in the audience in Atlanta, but also I can't imagine how many you would just have.
Right?
If I was a Bass Pro Shops manager, which I'm not, but let me put on my manager hat first.
Please do.
I would probably stock 2 to 3 of them because I don't expect any sane human to buy that. I just don't know why you would spend your money on it.
It's massive.
It's humongous. People don't really realize, you know, when they say the thing, there's always a bigger fish. No, it's the biggest fish plushie that you can get from Bass Pro Shops.
Joel is the biggest plushie.
Not sponsored, by the way.
No, most definitely not.
But I don't know what the issue is here right now. There seems to be some problem, I'm imagining, with Liquid, as they are not in the lobby at the moment. It's just Bleed who's in there. So we are waiting to hear. One of the things is the teams can talk and chat, but not officially. There's no official communication that can be done. This was a rule that was imposed a while ago because, what's to stop a team from having a rehost than using that to strategize? There's a reason why you have in-game timeouts. And as you can see, the teams are kind of joking around, but there's admins over their shoulders. There's no strategizing that's going to be done between these squads. So they're basically just waiting at this point. Now,
I can't. Every time I see it, it's just... Who the hell did that? Who got these guys a mannequin? In Brazil, what connection do you have to somebody in Brazil to get you a damn mannequin, dude? Oh my gosh. Especially during Carnival.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Every shop around here was closed.
I have no idea. I couldn't even begin to tell you. But obviously, I mean, these teams are just going to sit and wait at this point. What more can you do? But I find that these breaks can kind of cut in 2 ways. You know, teams will tell you, number one, if you feel like you've got momentum, if you feel like your opponents are tilted and angry, and then you go to a prolonged break like this, it's going to give your opponent some time to kind of wake up and, not be as mad and kind of recenter themselves. And then it effectively ends up being like a clean slate almost. But on the same time, the same saying, if you're really, really angry, it's very easy for you to dwell on that. And if you're one of those teams that's like, let's just move on, it can be tough to move on when you're sitting here. Paulo doesn't look particularly excited to be waiting all of this time. it's very easy for you to just sit there and dwell on it and think about it too. So
Absolutely. Especially for some of these teams. They've been waiting all day to play these games, right? Strategizing, getting warmed up in some scrims and things along those lines, you know. So they've been chomping at the bit all day to get into this lobby and get some action. Both these teams obviously been popping off in their own regard, which has been so much fun to watch. But definitely have to worry about that energy basis. A lot of different teams do a lot of different things. I mean, the one that I always go back to is iconic, because whenever something like this happens to him, he's just sitting there in the chair, eyes closed, just relax.
Yep.
Just relax, take your breath. You don't have to worry about things too much. Stress about things once you guys get back into the lobby, which, fingers crossed, we have things going right now, folks. So we'll see how this goes. We're not going to put it onto your screen yet until we have confirmed that this lobby is going to work.
Don't know how effective the listen-ins would be here right now, unless you, the audience, speaks Portuguese. We're in!
Ah, let's go.
I don't know if the noise gate picks up our clapping or not.
I think it does, because I was clapping on B stream yesterday, or the day before rather, and I could definitely hear it later on when I saw a clip on social media, and I was like, oops, that's on me.
Well, let me tell you, I sit where you currently are for most casts when I'm in mid, right? And then you are on the other side of that relatively thin partition. That stands no chance against your shouting. And there are times where Nick and I will be casting, and we're trying to be semi-soft-spoken because it's not a particularly crucial part of the round. And all I hear is just this explosion of you from the other side. And I can't remember what I said on the stream. It was something quite innocuous. It was like, I wonder if you can hear him. And then I just hear production come in and it's like, yeah, we can hear him. We can hear him clear as day.
Hey, listen, guys. All I'm gonna say is, you know I'm coming when you hire me, okay? like I'm a lethal weapon when it comes to volume. All right.
And it's like, let's take Carter, who's one of the loudest people in a social setting.
True.
And then you, who's one of the loudest casters. And what if we put them together? What would happen there?
Utter chaos, and that is actually what ensues when we cast. Yeah, 100%, 100%. About a minute into round 7 now, but we haven't really had much to touch on, folks. It's really just been a natural strategy that we usually see on this top floor. We've got the mirror implemented. That way they can't use exothermics the way that they want to. We've been seeing this used a little bit more often now. Parker will pop that just to get some impacts out, or maybe do something along those lines to be able to slow down this hard breach.
Yeah. It's a nice nitro cell waiting, primed and ready. They'll lose what I imagine are the bandit batteries on that wall. And Lagonis is waiting for the call, or waiting for the sound. There it goes. Oh, the ejected mirror window is a perfect throw for Lagonis to thread the needle and kill Reaps, the main hard breach in Thermite. You still have the insurance policy of the ace with those Selmas. So you've still got some hard breach, but not anymore because both your hard breachers just died to an extra cell.
Bleed does not really know what they want right now. It's like a teenage relationship. Figure things out here between these two. Got you with that one.
That's a good one.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
No, that one's getting jotted down.
5 versus 3 now, but I mean, this is well within Liquid's right to take this, especially with that clash up. It can slow down.
I was just going to say, the one operator that we haven't really touched upon is a clash. Like, what tools do you have to deal with this at the moment? You can flash her, yes. You can buck beneath her, but all the bees are going to do is tell them where she is. The Rotero drones are too slow, and the explosion is not going to do much to her. So Volps is just going to continue to stay on this shield operator. I do think it's a bit interesting that it's Volps on the operator after he had a little bit of some struggles. A little bit of struggles in that first half. Turf's going to die, and Liquid's lead will grow in terms of numbers with just a little bit under 30 seconds to go. Palu is just making every single shot work. And now Hoven's position has been given away. Yeah, throw an EMP. No. This is called the bikini body.
Oh no.
Yes, it's where you throw the shield on your back, and then you spin around and gun them down. Flawlessly done. As Lagonis gets the kill after the bait from Volps, distracts Hoven. Lead for Liquid.
Volps almost had it there. Almost had that bikini body-esque play, but actually going to be the MP from the back line there that takes him down. Liquid on a warpath right now. They've only dropped 1 round in the last 4. This defense already starting to find some building blocks to put together. Bleed, not really having a solid idea about how they wanted to go about that. The big play here, this lineup from Lagonas. You definitely know that wasn't something that was just thrown together in the moment. They had practiced this for some time to make sure that Nitro Cell would land correctly through that open Mira. And Bleed caught completely off guard from that. Kind of stunted in the moment, keeping them not to what they were doing. And unfortunately enough, the other Nitro Cell as well picking up the ace, meaning Liquid didn't even have to take a gunfight to kill 2 people at the very beginning of the round.
Yeah. Well, let's look at this lineup from Liquid at the moment. You've got a Legion, you've got Nazami, you've got a Mira, and you've got a Solus, and you're not going to have any fun if you're Bleed whatsoever here. These are, if I was playing ranked right now and I saw this, I would probably just leave the lobby at this point.
5 seconds to go.
In all reality, these are all the tools that you need to pull off a successful downstairs defense. The only caveat to that is if they thwart it with a rush. Now, Bleed is going to bring a Glass out just as we saw Liquid do the same thing in the previous half. I don't expect Bleed's tempo will be as quick because the big issue with Bleed is that they don't have that early initiator to close the gap and get in your face. That's what the Blitz was good for when Liquid decided, hey, let's open the wall up and let's go for broke. In fact, at this point in time in the round, which is 30 seconds in, I felt that Liquid were a lot closer to achieving their goal of planting the diffuser. Bleed are dotting their I's and crossing their T's. Ooh. They're droning, they're waiting. They've got extra intel from not just the regular drones, but also the Twitch drones, and then a Yana on the board in case they need help with information.
I'm really not a fan of this, Parky, because if they play into this top floor, they have to deal with a lot of Liquid players, and specifically, they have to deal with Nesk, which he is on that Kiba wielder, so we'll be able to continually put up those barriers, making things a little bit difficult, but it's a split job right now between these two, so they actually had those two up top, and now Mentalist is going to try his best lock things up on the site for them. Oh, what a find! Right on the edge of the smoke. He didn't step up properly into it, folks, and Resets could actually see him right there on the edge, and the entire strategy's out the window.
Well, now Turds does equalize the numbers at least by getting rid of the Mira. So that is, what, a Nitro Cell down for the count. They fire back by getting rid of Resets. Reaps is finding tons of avenues into the site, but it's only good for 1 kill. All the while this is happening, Aspie getting the plant down, he loses Hoven, which means Turds is the only one to guard it. And he makes the shot look relatively easy. It's all on the shoulders of Turds now as Nest will throw out the very final Kiba barrier and possibly plug a way back to the diffuser. Bleed will struggle now with just a single player up. Palu and Nesk are at full HP, and having to stare down both Palu and Nesk together in a post plant is a terrifying situation. But Turdsta is making magic happen right now. He'll run scared and hit a goo mine. Palu on the ascent, wrapping around. He might not have the information. Turdsta has the Black Mirror working against him, but Palu's about to run out of time. You still need to get on the diffuser, and he won't be able to do it. Excellently done by Turdsta, and Bleed will simply wait out the timer, irrespective of Palu engaging or not. A masterclass from Turdsta and how to play safe, waste time, and take a favorable engagement and avoid the ones that don't work for you.
Yeah. Good hammer and anvil move there from Bleed as they had the 2 players over there playing the breach, but they had 3 on the back end to try and influence the fights if things went wrong, Parker. That's the one thing that we didn't get to see as they moved in. Turd and the rest of these guys are pushing in via tank and exosuit, and they're able to find these angles that Liquid really aren't considering because, well, they just went for a strategy very similar, and practically everybody was sitting outside of that breach. They catch Liquid completely off guard, and Turd with a great moment there inside of that 1 versus 2. Was able to make some magic happen up against possibly the best duo in Siege history.
Yeah, I was going to say, having to stare down Nesk or Palu in a 1v1 alone is usually a frightening situation for a lot of people. Not like any of these players are shaken in their boots, but you know how good Palu is. You know how good Nesk is. And while Nesk maybe has slightly lost a step compared to where he's been in the past, he's still a huge threat. So having both of them hunt you down is frightening, frankly. But I will say, Palu and Nesk were kind of in between a rock and a hard place, stuck in the same part of the map in roughly the same position, and they were worried about the timing, so they decided, let's do an exploratory bit over here. Maybe we'll find somebody. Unfortunately, Nesk finds Turdsta in the wrong way, and then Turdsta just gets out of there. Honestly, gotta give him credit. Turtz is a young player with not a lot of international experience. But if one thing that we've seen from this Bleed team carries over to SI, it's that they are fearless. And fear was not a factor whatsoever for Bleed in that previous round.
No. And honestly, this kind of goes back to the kind of meme mentality that we were talking about earlier. You know, they're not taking life too seriously. Some of these teams, you walk past them, you're like, oh, you chop the air with a knife, right? It's like, maybe you guys need a little bit more bleed in you. Reaps is going to get this hatch. And just to touch on this, folks, because I know we probably got a couple new people around. The reason we saw him hop out and get that is because you can't find him. There's no way, even if you take a 3-speed, to get an angle on that position before he gets that hatch sealed and back in. A lot of people checked this out initially when this map came out, and that's why pros have been doing it ever since. Yeah,
you're sheltered from all of the spawn points, so you can run out, get it, get back in the building, and it provides huge value for you. Unless you're strapped, depending on what bomb set you're playing on, of course, but unless you're strapped for reinforcements, there's really no reason not to do it. You don't lose anything from trying. Now, Reaps is all gone in this round. The rehost eliminated all the scores, but Reaps had either almost broken double digits, I think he was at 9 kills at the end of the first half, or had just broken double digits. Now with the single kill, we are certain he's in that territory, and has looked like the biggest threat for Bleed so far. Losing him, but also losing the destruction that comes with the buck is huge. Also, he's only been able to get off one of those can openers, which means that the only hard breach you have is the ace of Aspie. Oven is above and terrorizing these Liquid players, and they still have information on the side of Bleed on the Liquid players, as you can see those yellow pings going off down below. They might be able to find one, as there go the boogie drones opening things up, and Mentalist goes fishing to find anybody from Liquid.
This is just worrisome, honestly, for both sides. If Bleed gets a nice pick here, this is more than likely going to be the round going their way, because this kitchen site, it's so hard to try and retake, Parker, especially when you have all that verticality upstairs. They do have a couple of nitro cells, or actually just one on their person, as Volps does have that, so they do have some counterattacks still in their back pocket, but Bleed has got to hightail it in here. Volps with another nice find onto Hoven. Aspie working his way up the hallway, but they found him in a swing here from the Legion. Resets very well done. Still have a few bodies to deal with, though, and it's going to go all down to Turd. We saw how good he was in the last round, but that position, well, it's not going to bode well for him. Liquid, a beautiful one there inside of Kitchen, of all places.
I got to say, I'm a little bit surprised at how Bleed is handling these attacks. They seem like a team of individuals rather than maybe a more cohesive group around them. And I mean, it's okay if you're going to play hero plays, and it's okay if you're going to be individuals, but when you're going up against a team on their map, I think that maybe a bit more teamwork would go an awful long way. Now, there's a couple reasons why they might not be battling all together and droning each other in so effectively and getting trades. It could be an unfamiliarity with the map. Maybe you're not particularly comfortable on the map, so you figure if we take our own engagements, we can win those. Well, if you're not familiar with the map, you're going to lose out because you don't know the map well enough. Alternatively, it actually could be the opposite. Maybe you're really confident on the map, and so much so that you say, I can win these engagements. I know where Liquid is. I know where they're going to sit. I can do this. Either way, it's clearly not working for them. Julio calling a timeout for Bleed, maybe to settle them down. And I haven't hated the operator lineups. I haven't hated the overall strategy for them. And honestly, their gun skill has been quite good. But if you can work as a team, drone each other in, not have Reaps blind peek and engagement on his own, and die early, I think your chances are going to go up drastically.
Yeah, they need that team play back, and you could definitely see it kind of get exploited inside of that last round, because they did the initial steps of the strategy, right? They get the top floor control, they expose all the angles inside of conference, but once they don't discover any Liquid players, like, oh, okay, what do we do now? Yeah. And they really just don't move. And that's what locks them up. They were frozen in time there for a split second. And it's really just because these early punishments, you know, Bleed's kind of working their way around the map slowly, crouch-walking through things, and it seems like every single time they just get inside of the realm of Liquid, they're immediately battered at the door.
Yeah. Previous round, if you saw what the Ram drones were doing, the boogies, was tossed out upstairs in that conference room, starting to tear away at the floor so that there could be some kind of vertical presence from Bleed and looking down. But I don't know if people noticed, there was 3 players from Bleed up there. At that point, there was only 4 Bleed players still alive. 3 of you are in a relatively important, but still ultimately inconsequential part of the map. not necessarily wasting time, but you certainly don't need 3 players up there. So what happens? They all separate, and that's when they start getting picked off one by one by one. So you play together when you really shouldn't be, and then you split up when you really shouldn't, and either or, you ultimately misplay it on both counts, and you lose the round. Now,
EMP's out.
they get this open.
Next over on the left side. You always got to worry about those Selmas with those impacts, right? Had a good timing, though, so didn't have to worry too much about it.
I'll immediately get plugged by the Kiba barriers. I'm a bit surprised we haven't seen any Tubaro. He, as an operator, is quite strong on this map. So much so, and I don't know if it's because it's the newest map, but I always kind of chuckle when I don't see a Tubaro on this map because I think this was the map that the operator was actually shown off on.
Yeah.
Those exterior walls, especially down in the basement, are so critical to hold. And I think the teams just kind of make a calculation that we can do it without him. Obviously, 2 days ago, I think it was GK was running him quite consistently. It was Noodle on this map. So obviously it happens, but Liquid are happy with this lineup. They don't need to bring him. That's okay. You forfeit a bit of the top floor. You've also lost Volps.
Oh.
Mentalist dies to reset, so now is on a single point of HP, and then immediately smokes the door. Will go prone with a shotgun. I don't like Hoven engaging here, but that was a hipfire one tap because resets was on a single point of HP, for those of you wondering at home. Just a little over a minute left, Sam, and Bleeder doubled up on Liquid. It's very much looking like we're going to need all 12 rounds with how these teams are playing.
Definitely. Unless Palu, you bad man.
Yeah, I mean, you got Palu still on the board. Lagonas has had some issues on the team in terms of getting kills, and frankly, in terms of the scoreboard, has been one of the weaker players for Liquid over the last year. But Palu's a monster. Oh, no.
Perfect timing. Very well done, Lagonas. No
Sorry.
drone over on this staircase either? What are we doing, boys?
Yeah, I don't know why. For whatever reason, Fish was just completely absent from their intel. And, I mean, there's only one drone left for Bleed. That's probably why. Liquid has been far more adept at killing drones.
It's no Solus, though. It's just like...
Yeah. It's this is the thing, and we've seen this actually a lot. Teams are not running like Mutant Mozzie, and still information is not in their disposal. It's all up to Lagonas now, Sam, with 15 seconds remaining. He'll creep around the pre-fire, and he has a good idea. He chunks Turdsta, but just simply not enough. He did actually less than Turdsta's HP with that TCSG. It's far from the gun it used to be, where it would hit your toe and take 67 HP away. Either or. Every single attacking team seems to confront this issue where they are, I don't want to say wasting drones, but I have never really noticed how few drones attackers end up having halfway through the round as I have at this event.
Yeah.
It always seems like teams still have 4, 5, or 6 drones, and we're criticizing them for having too many drones and too little intel. Now it's the opposite. Why are you losing drones so early? There's no mutes, there's no Mozzies. Where are these drones going at this point, especially with Solus not being played as well?
Yeah, exactly. And especially with those kind of positions, you know, that's a very pivotal stairwell. You kind of just expect some info game to be there. But nevertheless, you know, Bleed had enough in the tank to be able to take a few body shots from Liquid and still get things figured out.
That's a dirty shot.
Yeah, and, I mean, just Turt's just so nasty, dude. He, like, constantly, across these last 2 events, he has impressed me time and time again with his resiliency. But not only that, Parker, his patience. He doesn't get overzealous about situations. Yeah. He will sit right at home plate and be like, just pitch it right over, man. I promise you I'll knock this out of the park.
And again, that goes back to what I said back in, like, I think it was like the second round. It's like, stop acting like you're surprised that you won a round. Like, you've got great players on your team. Both Turdsta and Reaps are exceptionally talented players, at least mechanically. I can't speak to their overall understanding of the game or their game sense because I'm not on that team. But they win their duels, and they can stack up against the best of the best across pretty much every region. So if you can show that level of confidence as we saw in the previous round and just win your ones, you're going to go really far. No way Aspie survives that. He does, though. Nitro Cell tossed out, and Aspie can continue to soldier on. Just a tiny scratch, nothing major.
Probably just one little pellet out of that thing. And honestly, pretty impressive that Liquid have these amount of lineups for Nitro Cells here. And speaking of lineups, don't really need this one. This is more free form based off the info there from the cardiac sensor. Goodbye, sir. And that's what we were talking about earlier, when Bleed had a Pulse as well as a Solus up, and not a single person was playing the basement for that, for, you know, where the site was there. Because that entire area is all soft. You can just blow it up. But, yeah, I mean, just really interesting moment from that earlier bit. But now Hoven down. And of all people as well, it's the IQ that gets taken out by the Pulse.
Yeah.
Keep up area on
I don't know if it's just teams maybe still kind of scrambling to adapt to a pretty drastic change in the meta. And I mean, there hasn't been any tier 1 competition for almost 3 months at this point, right? So teams are only relying on scrims, and various regions will tell you that the scrim quality they have is not always great. NA in particular has been complaining a lot about scrim quality over the last couple months, with teams taking time off. And I mean, teams are not even having a roster. Like, how is OXG scrimming? They don't have a full roster at the moment, right? Oh my. We'll pick right back up in just a second, because Liquid is about to flawlessly go to match point here, with Volps killing literally everybody he can find, and Aspie, who is actually the one who very narrowly survived a Nitro Scalp earlier, ends up being the last body to get buried by Liquid in that round. Now, hold on a second, Sam. Let me regain my thoughts here, because Liquid was very impolite. We've seen over the last couple days pretty basic mistakes committed by teams. For example, flashbangs being tossed out, and a Warden who has the ability ready for those smart glasses, not using them. We've seen teams struggle with walls despite having EMPs and opt not to use them. We've seen teams use hard breach gadget on soft walls and hatches when they've got soft destruction to do that. And I don't know if teams are just ill prepared, or if there's a lot of pressure on some of these squads as they wear off that rust and shake off that rust at this level. But when you're committing very basic mistakes, it's so hard to come back from that, because your teammates are obviously going to be mad about it. So you look at things like not droning or using your drones improperly, and I wonder if that culprit is just ring rust, frankly, for some of these teams. He was terrible on attack, and then Volps just turns it on for defense, and is on defense so far has been probably the most impactful player on Liquid, despite not having the most kills on his team.
Yeah, most definitely. It's been pretty impressive. But they've needed someone to try and battle back up against Bleed. Palu obviously been doing a big job, 7-2. He's matching Tur's energy, and that's what you really want to see. But Volps is the one that's pushing it over the edge right now. Palu being able to match Tur means that Volps, he's even getting more done on top of that, right? So very well done for them, as Liquid starting to put things together. Angelo's going to work his way down low here, more than likely looking to put a torch line into this wall. We do have some secondary hard breach here for Aspie as well, so pay attention to where that Grim's going to go. Might try and get those hatches worked on or something along those lines.
Just a little bit of art on the wall. It's playtime for Bleed as they draw a sad face and then immediately run away. Let's take a look at it.
It's a
not quite a sad face yet.
Upside down L.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think those are glyphs that are being drawn in. It's like in Pokemon when you go down and you see like the unknowns and the different shapes, and you're like, I wonder what that means. Who knows?
Oh, man. Yeah, 10-year-old Sam was lost for words. I was like, I don't even know.
I had to relearn the alphabet in Pokemon. I didn't realize it would be an educational game. It was edutainment. I was educated and entertained. Either way, Bleed has taken their time out, and they have seemingly regained some composure. We praised Mentalist early on in the first couple rounds, and he has been relatively absent. So now he's just on these hard support roles to help the team through utility, because his effectiveness in terms of fights have been poor. But really, most of Bleed has been bad. Aspie's 1-5. Reaps is 1-4. That's especially bad for a player in his position. It's do or die. If you have a stinker of a round from these players, it's game over. You move on to the second map of Oregon, which obviously Bleed picked, but you don't really, I think, go with your head held high. I honestly think Bleed can push this to overtime.
Most definitely.
They have a minute to prove that, Sam.
Yes, they do. Pretty scary too, because honestly, Oregon, is it even something, it's kind of like Clubhouse right now, is it even something worth picking up against an opponent that can play it well, right? Because then they get to choose the side, and you can just choose the favorable side. Yeah. It's a little risky, but obviously these teams, they've been scrimming these maps a heck of a lot, and these offensive sets are going to be more paramount to their success down the line. So we'll see if Bleed, with that in mind, can get that done right now and force us to overtime. They are trying to force things through Exos too, but this should have been identified very early on, and Lagonis,
look down,
with the EDDs, takes out Aspie.
That kill was about 2.5 minutes in the making, and it's a hard lesson to learn. I'm assuming they've probably droned out the captain. They must know. Lagonis obviously goes from high to low very quickly. Volps has now been down. The guns from Bleed are finding their way. Hoven's been dropped too. and secured the kill is Palu. Reset's getting on the board. More damage is being done. Mentalist firing away. Turds is done. There goes the case, and it's almost a flawless round. A huge finish by Reset. Sam, as Liquid survive a bit of a scare, but ultimately prevail on Nighthaven Labs.
Very well done from Liquid, and honestly, just at least with the overall strategy here, a cut above of Bleed. A lot of different layers there that I was really hoping that we would see from Bleed. Some things like that downstairs presence that exploded the man inside of barrels, and a few of the different clears that we saw them using on their offenses that we didn't really get to see out of Bleed. But we do have another map still after this one. It's going to be a pretty fun one as well, as Oregon has actually been a pretty good time so far, at least for me, Casting. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been enjoying it. I'm sorry I was a little bit late to the party here, and I appreciate you covering for me as I battle chronic illness. But the battle is not just for me, it's also for Liquid and Bleed, and we still got at least one more map to go. We'll be right back.
Well, I'm sure it would have been a lot closer than Liquid would have liked it. It comes down to the wire, but unfortunately Bleed can't get it done. Does that send warning bells to the Liquid camp?
I don't think so. I think both teams have the same amount of respect for each other as they should. Both teams were going literally slugging it back and forth, and that they both had an equal amount of opening kills, both on their defensive halves. So in that regard, I mean, I think both teams are eager, they're warmed up, they're solid, they're ready to go into the second map. But I mean, yeah, the first map was just a slugfest, back and forth.
Extremely back and forth. I mean, we saw Bleed open it with 2 big rounds, and I like what Sam said on the cast. You know, it felt like Liquid were maybe taking a couple of rounds to like figure out their opponent, understand what style of game was about to be played, and then they won back-to-back attacking rounds. They really kind of pulled that one back. We ended a 3-3 half, and then the defensive side from Liquid, really good. I really like some of the cool stuff we saw, like the C4 lineups, that first defensive half from Lagonis, and then there was another one from the Mirror that went into electrical. Just perfect. Yeah. Yes, it was Palu.
And they got rid of their hard breachers.
Yeah, both hard breaching in 2 lineups. Like, I don't know. There was some really cool stuff coming out from both these teams, but Liquid just a little bit better today.
Now, something that I think we can all agree was, look, I enjoyed watching it. Did it play out the way they might have wanted to? I don't know. The smoke plays.
Yeah, so we saw both teams attempt a basement push with the smokes, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. The way that
we almost did it. We almost knocked it out.
They were pretty good. I like the recovery is all I'll say about that. But in terms of the overall stats too, I mean, what's really impressive to me is just how even we're seeing things across from Team Liquid. You were saying just yourself, Laxing, that it's not just the Paulo and Nesk show anymore.
No, Resets has, like I said yesterday, he was popping off. And then even today, just watching him, he's their hard breach or their secondary hard breach, their support player. And he's the one taking the opening engagements. He's the one that's going in there, getting the kills. It kind of reminds me of Fultz back during stage 1 where he was the hard breacher, he was the support player, but he was the running into the building, getting all the kills for his team. And yeah, I mean, Resets is just an absolute animal. So maybe we're forgetting about Nesk and Palu necessarily, and it's about resets.
Now, there was one player that we highlighted, or maybe we didn't even highlight it. I think we might have spoken off camera and we didn't get a chance to talk about him on camera, but Reaps.
Yeah, well, we talked about Reaps having a bit of a poor performance yesterday. He was the lowest.
Stop gassing up behind.
But Reaps particularly had a pretty bad day yesterday. He was the lowest fragger on all of Bleed when they played their last match against W7M. And so I was concerned about that. I wanted to see him pop back up. He really did. Turd had some fantastic moments as well. But we got to see Reaps really thrive. I thought he was getting aggressive. He was finding those opening picks. I think the biggest problem, again, from yesterday from Reaps was him just going down early way too often. With him being a little bit more reserved, and I think having a bit of a bigger map to run around on, he really did find a lot of those moments to explode, and that was huge for him and his team.
And to say, just to keep it short and sweet, you're only as good as your last game.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. And I mean, if that's something to go off, we've got 4 players that are going to pop off coming into the next game. But look, it may or may not happen. How did you read like the play styles went? Did you feel like they were contrasting? Did they kind of
think
blend?
they were evenly matched. I think Bleed made just a few more errors than what Liquid may have made, especially on round 4, I believe, when Lagonis pushed in with the Monty and Mental had the shotgun. What stressed me out in that situation is Mentalist was focused on the Monty, knowing that it was pushing him not unextended from the shield, knowing that if Monty's pushing up, you can only assume either someone's coming from his left to refrag that, and because Mentalist was focused on the Monty, they get a free kill, and guess who it was? Resets. We saw it in that round right there. I'm pretty sure that was the round. Then Resets goes in to get a double kill, another triple kill, ends the round. It's just little plays like that, little small, minute details of just paying attention to a shield and not just looking to the left that gets you a free kill can ultimately cost you a round.
Now, Jesse.
Yes,
the smoke play. Let's talk about it, shall we?
The smoke plays in the basement. Both teams attempted for basement rushes in the with the smokes and with the glass, and both of them started off really poorly. We've got some highlights for you to showcase exactly what happened. The first time we saw it from Liquid, and immediately, oopsie to C4. Immediately it failed. It didn't go their direction. But then there was the recovery. They got the plant down because Lagonis was second in with Diffuse Kit, put that on the ground, and Nesk had some of the sickest cover on the glass, holding the angle, playing perfectly, conserving his ammo when he needs to close that out.
That Azami was such a, I think the Azami tried to get it on the other side to cover him off instead of,
Then we saw Resets from inside of Nano be able to shut down the glass play. Boop! Finds the glass right at the start of that push before they can even get the smokes down to get that plant. But what happens instead? We see Turd and we see Reaps collapsing in onto Nano. Turd gets the frag onto Lagonis to trade that out. We're going to get to watch also a frag coming through from Reaps in the kill feed. There it is. And while there is a trade onto Reaps, Turds holds on to this and he's able to survive inside of Exo, inside of Nano, eventually killing Nest in this one little cross and then avoiding Palu in some fantastic passive play. Palu takes a bit of damage, doesn't follow up that kill onto Turd, and then it's completely lost, does not have the time to find the frag. Turd wins it on time. So both teams go for this very fast kind of direct execute with the smoke push. Both teams failed initially and both teams recovered.
Guess we could call that segment Smokes and Mirrors.
I mean, I didn't even realize that Cade had, the same vision that
Warden has.
That Warden has. Yeah, I was impressed with that smoke.
Yeah, that was pretty gnarly. It was a little bit unlucky. But, of course, we are moving on to another map right now. That map being Oregon. How do we feel going into this one? Do we think Bleed have enough? You said that you expected Bleed to pick this Laxing.
Yes.
Does that mean they're going to be able to do it against Liquid?
It was the map that they took against W7M, won it 7-5. And again, it is a very default map. You can play aggressive on it, you can play passive on it, you can kind of control the pace when you are on defense for this map. So for Bleed to be coming here, again, it's no surprise to me. I think, again, both teams, it's a very default map. It's going to be simple, but I think Bleed has what it takes to really push it to the limit, just like they did with W7M, and close it out. But that comes off the backing of being able to trade off your teammates and not letting teams taking control of certain power positions.
Jesse?
Yeah, it's a map that both teams are comfortable on. Obviously, Bleed, they've never lost this map, but even Team Liquid, back in stage 1, they won this map 6 times in a single stage. They haven't won it since, but still, it's a map that's very default. They're going to be familiar with it. I don't think they're going to have any problems here either.
Let's hope not. That's for damn sure. Let's hope we don't have any problems either as we throw it across to the greatest solo commentator in the world, Stokes.
He's not by himself this time. We are A-okay.
Oh, thank God.
And you were saying at the time, you're like, no worries, buddy. I would have done the same for you. And it's like, I wouldn't have actually. And I would have made everybody know that it was entirely your fault. So
He did say that.
That's how it works. That's how it works. I am not as nice as Sam is. However, Jesse talked about the stats on Oregon, Sam. Oregon. This is a relatively comfortable map for pretty much every team, but even then, while it might be comfortable, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the best. But does Oregon buck the trend that we see of being a defender stronghold, or is Oregon yet another defender-sided map?
Well, my friend, let me tell you, it most definitely is. It's in the top 3, actually. I'll give you the full list because I know some of y'all really appreciate that. Clubhouse is number 1, obviously. 8 plays, 74% defensive overall win rate. Absolutely insane. Skyscraper with 4 plays has a 70%. And then Oregon, this will be its 7th play, but through 6, 63% defensive win rate. Now, here is the funny thing. We still haven't gotten a successful kitchen dining defense, but when have those ever happened? We've tried those 3 times, G2 being one of the people that tried it. Still didn't work.
Operator bans coming in an Amaru ban. Amaru or Amaru, depending on where you come from. You're going to pronounce your name very differently. That's an intriguing one. This is an operator that has a bunch of different applications. So number 1, the single most common way that you see an Amaru played is slingshotting up to T3, which is the top of tower. But a lot of teams that we've witnessed so far at this event don't really hold tower the way that they used to. So now when you see an Amaru on this map, it's slingshotting up into a position where you can potentially go into kids' dorms, or you can do games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, the dorms one is right there. Yeah, that was the main line that I was thinking of, because that's what we've been seeing a lot at this event. We've been seeing them abuse that dorms hatch when it's not reinforced, and if it is, maybe they shift that over to the window play instead, just because she's a very explosive operator. She's somebody that if you are not concerned with her in that split second when you hear that Gara hook go off, you're probably dead. It's a very worrisome case, but one that neither one of these teams is going to have to worry about. That's just the respect that Liquid has for that. They want to make sure that Bleed doesn't have an option to try and catch them off guard with that Amaru Gara hook. But even past that, leading back into what Parker said, this might open up the gates to play T3 in a different way as well.
But unsurprisingly, the first bomb site that we're going to see is Laundry and Supply down below.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Exactly.
5 seconds to insertion.
Setup is still going on. Blue has been a very interesting part of this map so far because we actually haven't seen that much of an emphasis on the elbow/blue/tarps portion of this map. The focus has largely been on clearing Freezer and then attacking from Laundry Stairs. Pillar hasn't been as important as usual. Blue hasn't necessarily been as important as usual.
This is what we have been seeing, though. This deployable shield has been, popping up around these Oregon maps so far. So, in fact, Parker, I would say that they've taken the elbow strategy and they've just shifted it up about 10 feet. That's what they've done. There's a couple ADSs there in place. Maybe they have one of those fear gases right above just to give Volps a little bit of positional advantage if somebody does want to swing. But this is a really power position that a lot of teams have been adopting into their defense, making it really difficult for the offense to try and get a foothold on construction in the same way that they used to. Now a bleed out and about on the map. They're going to start clearing things out. It looks like they want to go for the full clear here, at least for Reap's sake. He's going to start working his way across from the cafe side of things. Still have a few bodies here on the front end as well, as they will attempt to clear up things and at least get these hatches under control. Shouldn't be too difficult either, as there's not a lot of bodies around for Liquid. They're going to turtle up on the bottom floor, and, well, why wouldn't you? Very well done.
Bye-bye, X-Kairos. Might be within reach of Lagonis. Nothing worse than throwing an Electric Claw on a part of the map where you think you can reach it, but it is just like maddeningly and like an inch too high.
Bomb located by attackers.
I think this one will go off.
Very well done. And honestly, surprised that we haven't been seeing a lot of Tubarão in these positions with these hatches.
Yeah, I mean, I heard an awful lot before we got to this event that he's very omnipresent. You know, he's very oppressive to play against, that teams are using him quite effectively, and that with him in the game, it's impossible to get these walls, so on and so forth. But
I was in that boat as well, I'll be honest.
yeah, I mean, if you coming into this matchup, just from scrim reports I heard and from talking to certain teams, it seemed like we were going to see him in every single round, greatly influencing every single part of the map. But that's been very far from the truth. He's been banned a couple times, but not as much as I thought, and played far less than I expected.
It's really interesting as well. I don't know if it's a comfortability thing or exactly what it is, but I mean, we don't scrim, do we? So we don't exactly know what people's mindset is about this character right now, and exactly what's, you know, left out in the cold.
That's certainly a way to trade.
Yeah, most definitely is. Got me off guard there. You can see my brain lagging a little bit on what the heck was going on. And, well, Palu, he's going to be able to find Reeves. That position over there inside of Freezer now dwindling as they're only onto Laundry, as well as Reeves, that's a rather turd upstairs. Hubbin's going to try and do his best to work his way in. Does have Case in hand. Has to try and find a home for this, but he's going to find Volps instead. Still has to try and implement this somehow. Mental's going to try and hold the cross. They do still have to try and get something going here. They'll be able to take down Nesk, and now there's no way that this is going to be able to happen. Yep, Hubbin discovered by Nesk. That's a double for him, and a beautiful round for Liquid on the basement.
Yeah, great start for Liquid here, and something that actually one of the observers just messaged me on, and this is credit to Easy. There was a set of Hibana charges that went onto Freezer, but then they used a breach, and the explosion from the breach destroyed the X-Kairos pellets. So you basically just screwed yourself over. Your own breach destroyed your hard breach, meaning you now can't gain the access to the certain part of the map that you needed. Shout out to our observers for catching that and relaying that to us, because it's something that we didn't see, but that's the beauty of having multiple observers, especially talented observers at this event, which Easy is, of course. He's one of the best. That said,
he paid you, didn't he?
He did. He just Venmoed me $20.
Oh, man. Such an easy thing to do. Round 2, though, on the docket. And a pretty interesting one to start things off. Saw some hatch play there, especially with the Electro Claw shuffle that was able to at least slow things up just for the moment. But, I mean, the star of the show was really Liquid being able to discover those 2 big kills initially that put Bleed onto the back foot. It made it a one-front assault. They had to try and take things in from Laundry, and that was really about it. Yeah, they kind of get creative in the heat of the moment and are able to find a few pretty creative kills. But did it really matter at the end of the day? No, it did not.
Azami has just been such a force to be reckoned with. By the way, Nesk, 4 kills to start off these 2 rounds, and we still have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go in round number 2. That's quite impressive on his end.
He's always impressive.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I do think that Nesk is getting to the point in his career where there are younger players that are able to match where he's at right now. But I think people forget just how good Nesk was. He's been in conversation for one of the best players to ever touch this game for the better part of almost a decade at this point. Like, we've been talking about this since 2016, early 2016. I mean, you don't want to be making mistakes like that, but he's kind of in a tough spot.
There's no way.
No.
Please, please.
No! He hit the deagle, though.
Oh, my.
It takes both Reaps and Turdsta to get Nesk out of that position in armor, just to show you how much of a beast he can be. But with that, Turdsta has taken full control of Armory, though Volps will soften him up with an impact and some bullets from the P90 before all of Liquid retreat from that position, which means Trophy and Bedroom should be theirs for the taking. And Hoven will waste no time to get the Monty into Bedroom.
Not a bad strategy in the slightest. Waste a good amount of time, but now this Monty in play. It's a little bit more difficult here for Liquid, especially because they don't really have a delay op implemented here. They have some nitro cells and some other things that could potentially run amok for the Monty, specifically those frost mats if he steps the wrong way. But past that, they're going to try and deal with him head on, and that's exactly what you don't want to do with Monty. Bleed does still have quite a few bodies around as well, so Hoven's probably going to be at the heart of this play. Minute remaining now, Case going to be on Mentalist, as they're looking to more than likely implement a games room plan here.
Reaps is low on HP. The one thing that the defense lacks is plant denial. All they have is a single nitro cell. There's no echo, there's no maestro, there's no smoke. There's nothing that could potentially thwart you when you get in. And the lack of smoke is actually a huge hindrance to Liquid with the lineup that Bleed has. Mentalist is going to attempt the plant, likely protected. There's a nitro cell to go out, it does not connect. They've sealed off the wall at top white, by the way, which allows Mentalist to plant for free. And now Liquid will walk on up as they get continuously picked apart. I gotta say, I didn't notice if there was a rotate on the top of white. It looked like it was fully reinforced.
It was. And
puzzling.
There's a reason why you're leading into this, and it's because that is never reinforced.
No.
Ever. Ever in a million years is that reinforced. And it's because of that exact scenario, Parker. Bleed noticed that that panel was there, and they planted on it. The usual spot that you plant in games, guys, is right across the foosball table from where he was. And nobody there. All because of that reinforcement. He would have been stopped in his tracks if that were the case, but unfortunately enough for them, certainly not. And Nesk with a nice little kill there, at least initially to lead it off, but it was definitely the Bleed show as Liquid was leading all over the place inside of round two. It's going to be a round going both of their ways through these first two. Round three now on the docket. And Liquid, we're revisiting, Parker. I told you earlier, Nick and I casted the G2 game that took place on this, and they were feeling themselves on kitchen dining as well. But do you see this stat right here? There's a reason that's still 0. It's because they lost.
Kitchen dining has been played 3 times as of the start of this match. It's never been won by the defense.
No.
So you go to this bomb site, and Liquid are going to try to be the first team, based on these stats, to pull this off.
Just such an awkward site. And the reason that it's awkward is because Cafe is so easily influenced by the offense, especially if they're able to get small tower control. And that's really what we're going to be looking at for Liquid. What do they do with small tower? If they don't have a proper answer for this, this is more than likely the entry point for Bleed. But also, this site has a lot of different ways you can break it down. If you really want to, you can get creative and go through meeting as well, influence the back end at kitchen, try and use that opposite door there. And then if you really want to try and spice things up on top of that, just throw a couple bodies over through Z, and you got a full strategy going on right then and there.
I'm seeing an awful lot of Grim lately for a number of reasons. Number one, Grim's buffs. 5 sets of Bs. Not necessarily for anti-flank anymore, but excellent to lob into these bomb sites and make it very challenging for the defenders to move through. Additionally, secondary hard breach. And then the Commando, a gun that Lynx and I talked about earlier today.
Love it.
It is statistically one of the best guns in the game, pound for pound, at the moment. Largely just because all of its contemporaries have been nerfed. So you're left with the Commando still standing. And it was something we talked about when why you would bring an IQ or why you'd bring a Grim. If you don't necessarily, if you don't necessarily need the gadget from IQ, just bring the Grim. He can do the job instead. Volps the first kill, Nesk dies. Both teams losing 1 apiece, and there go the bees upstairs. As Reaps is in pursuit of one of these defenders, but Liquid is very wisely fallen off. The problem is that with half of the round to go, you have given Bleed entire control of the top floor.
With a buck as well.
Yep.
That's very, very scary. Looks like Bleed are going to go for things from the meeting side. As we discussed, you usually look for this side or you look for small tower, but I'm going to choose the former. Mentalist, at least be able to get that wall open. They're waiting for Reap's influence here. They want to get this skeleton key to try and rip up as many angles as possible, but he's not really tearing into that floor just yet. So maybe Reap's having a different mindset about this as well. Looking to see if Liquid want to try to swing into anything, but not right now. They've actually worked themselves off to these auxiliary spaces to try and make sure that once that kitchen execute does come through, they have these angles in from the west to work up top towards the east and assist them that way. Oh, Volps. It's on that full rotation.
Yeah, Resets has the Solus in a very crucial spot right now. The Mentalist has found a way in. Well, Resets understand this. Palu,
oh my
gets
God,
it because nobody's watching security. Every single remaining player of Bleed seems to have their attention on the top floor. Nobody is watching. Oh, as Palu hits Reaps with the fadeaway and now drops into the basement. Aspie picking up that diffuser will have to plant just as Hoven did in the previous round, all on his own. He won't get to that. And as far as I'm aware, that's the first successful defense of the kitchen and dining bomb site.
And with that, there is only one site that has not been won inside of the competitive map pool. Take a guess, Parker. What is it?
I'm going to go and say it's probably Border Customs.
Oh, that's a good one. But no, it's Teller Archives on Bank.
Oh.
Only has one play, 0 wins.
I casted that.
There it is.
I did cast it.
There it is. But hey,
Unbelievable.
not a bad site either, but sometimes things just don't work out. Speaking of not working out, that was a huge blunder there. That split position exposed. And not only that, I mean, it's Mira of all people on the rotation. We know you hear her coming up that staircase, okay? So a little bit of an oversight there from Bleed, and Liquid get things done. I really appreciate them kind of giving Bleed the space to mess up right there. Not overswinging, just keeping their guns hot and alive and making sure that once things did start to break down later on into the round, they had the things implemented necessary to try and get that round to go off without a hitch, especially those rotations, obviously, of all things.
Well, I mean, Liquid getting 2 rounds so far. If you consider that this map was picked by Bleed, if Liquid can run up the score on the second half, huge gust of wind that'll be at their back when they swap sides. But we say that most of the momentum, if not all of the momentum that happens in this game, is solely in your head. The only real momentum I think teams can muster up is based on the site rotation, right? You can gain momentum by winning a bad site, quote unquote, for your side and then snowballing it forward. For example, on a map like, let's just spitball here. Let's say like Oregon, just a random map. Certainly not the one we're playing right now, just Oregon, okay, right? Say I'm following me. Laundry supply and dorms are usually won by the defenders, and then you lose your tertiary bomb site on defense. That's either your meeting kitchen or kitchen dining. If you as a defender can win kitchen and dining or meeting and kitchen, you're in great shape. And now you have good momentum because presumably you'll go to one of those other 2 bomb sites where you are presumed to win. That's momentum. Other than that, it's all in your head. Liquid are a momentum-based team. You can see that when they lose, they can tilt more than other teams. That's the passion that makes Liquid a great team, can actively work against them. Liquid running up the score early on, it's exactly what they want, and it's what Bleed doesn't.
Most definitely. Mentalist going to be able to get that hatch here for main. Does look like something has already been done here inside of meeting as well. Yeah, hatch is open, but you can see that E-Box has been reinforced for the boiler side. That's going to allow Nest to try and swing in to assist. I do believe Volps, indeed. Yep, yes. And it's going to be the smoke there playing inside of construction. So if anything goes down, they have a lot of different checks and balances implemented in this area to make it really hard for Bleed to try and work their way through construction. But as you can tell, that isn't exactly the game plan for them right now. As of right now, they're at least looking to freeze their in laundry to try and get this sealed up. Reaps is going to be able to identify a few things going on over on the construction side of things, and he's going to lose that Twitch drone practically instantaneously as he tries to work it around Volps.
Yeah, a lot of good information, though, gleaned from those drones. Not a ton remaining at this point for Bleed, but you're hitting the final minute. You're not exactly going to be going on to drones quite reliably. One thing that is a surprise is that even though things have seemingly slowed down across the board in Rainbow Six, is that all 10 players are still alive with 40 seconds to go. That is a bit of a rarity. It means things are going to get really messy, but it also bodes well for the defenders. They've got goo mines that they can toss out, 2 Kiba barriers for Palu. There's smokes from Volks. Aspie almost dying, but will now follow up on that information taken from the Bees. Most of Liquid have fallen back. 3 players from Bleed at the bottom of Laundry Stairs is not necessarily a good spot for them to be in. Resets will be the first one to tackle this. Swinging up, and Bleed wins the opening engagement. And suddenly their chance of winning the round is huge. Hoven getting the diffuser down, almost past the timer. Bonus around the corner and will stop him. And with over half of the lobby still alive, Liquid will prevail on a messy set of engagements for both teams.
Bleed needed that kill so badly on that cross. If they get him, Parker, that plant more than likely goes down, and Bleed are in the driver's seat for round 4, but obviously all for naught. They fight so hard, tooth and nail, to try and get some semblance of force built up for Freezer and Laundry, but it all falls to the wayside because one Liquid player makes a mad dash into the closet and takes down the planner. Very well done from Liquid. A great identification of the situation and knowing, well, if we don't do anything now, this round is more than likely lost.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's tough to bail yourself out of that position. And I mean, this is what I said about getting momentum, right? Liquid won that tertiary bomb site in the previous round. A bomb site that, prior to that, did not have a single win for the defenders, albeit with a relatively small pick rate.
For a reason.
For good reason. I mean, there's a reason why nobody goes to these bomb sites in comparison. You know, you look at the numbers, there's been 64, prior to this game, there's been 64 rounds played on Oregon, and only 3 of those have been played on Kitchen Dining. So it is just, it's not in vogue, if we want to say that. It's not hot right now, Sam. But, so Liquid wins that, and now you get to go to 2 bomb sites in a row where statistically, you absolutely should win. Laundry Supply Room has been won 67% of the time it's been played. Kids Dorms, 67% of the time it's been played. So Liquid should have some momentum based solely on the way that this map plays out. And the best thing is that if you're a fan of Liquid, they've won 3 of the 4 rounds. They're doing quite well, given the way that Oregon goes. Obviously, they have to go on to attack later. That's where we're going to see the real test of Bleed. Can they prevent Liquid from continuing what they've done on defense on attack?
It all starts now. Got a few bodies here right outside of Master. Also a couple over inside of Attic, I do believe.
So hold on a second. Nest dies early. That's bad, especially on a zombie. Less than a minute in, losing your zombie, that means you're going to be down 2 Kiba barriers, give or take. And that's not including the fact that Nest might have died with some in pocket. Because the way that Liquid's been deploying the Azami is you keep them for either the post plant or when you know where they're coming from, you toss them out. High likelihood Nest was only able to get 1 or 2 Kiba barriers off. Very low value for that operator. But the one thing that Liquid has changed up here, Sam, is they've left the wall at top of White soft. They haven't created a rotate, but they've structured it so that if you have impact, you can open it up. And they've got 1 impact in the pocket of the Solus. Now that we're getting to the halfway point, Palu's just opened it up with a shotgun. So excellent change from Liquid.
Oh, Palu.
That could have been so nasty.
That would have been absolutely disgusting. And he was in the right zip code, but just couldn't find the home, could he? Volps. This might be the move right here. Oh, Grim! Oh my God, Aspie! What a shot! That transfer was disgusting. Liquid to the sword. 3 of them down. Reaps the only body for Bleed. Now, we're versus 2 here in the dying moments. You have Lagonis and Resets still, but Resets has not been hot to trot so far here on Oregon.
Excellent turn
Attackers have located a
Thank you. I
bomb.
really appreciate that. Resets. Let's have a nice angle here, Parker. If you can get this man inside of Attic, this is most definitely doable. Aspie a little lower on HP, but he finds him. Aspie soul searching. He's found what he wanted, and it's the kill. Lagonis, plant now going down, but what a find from Turd. And what else do you expect out of Turd? That guy is electric in these moments.
Tursta was a single bullet away from dying, though. But yeah, I mean, we're obviously on the player cams right now, but this is one of those instances where I so wish that you'd been able to see that replay because it was an unbelievable shot. He just leaned, 1 or 2 bullets, immediately leaned back, had all the confidence in the world that he was going to pull off that kill, and he gets the job done. So Dorms is definitely not Liquid's site. As I pointed out, it's a 67% win rate over the 21 times it's been played. Yeah, Nest dying to a random barricade spray is not good. And Aspie was prepared for that.
That's just
almost like there's premonitions here that Bleed has about the location. There you go, there's the replay. A beautiful shot by Turdsta. But the fact that Liquid is able to pull off a win on Kitchen and Dining, but then lose Dorms twice, when it has one of the highest win rates of any site that's been played more than a handful of times.
Let's just not talk about Clubhouse. It just breaks the whole spectrum.
Yes. But if you look at all the sites that have been played so far on all of these maps, and you look at the sites that have been played in terms of attackers, defenders, it's a very, very friendly bomb site to the defenders, and Liquid just can't figure it out. Obviously losing Ness right at the beginning, like I said. Very poor usage of Azami if she's dying in the first minute, because you're dying with most of those Kiva barriers, if not all of those Kiva barriers in your back pocket. At that point, it doesn't matter what operator you pick, it's suboptimal, but obviously a lot of pressure on the shoulders to use the Azami correctly because of how impactful that operator can be.
Volps.
When you look at a bomb site like Dorms, by the way, you're already as an attacker confronting a lot of hard walls that you can't blow open or shoot through. Add a couple Kiva barriers to the mix, and it's a total mess. Because if you don't bring explosives, you're so screwed with being able to take map control and engage against your opponents.
Absolutely. Makes life a lot harder, especially with your drone game, because there's just such a laundry list of tasks to do. You know what I mean? So you're trying to discover things, you're trying to see what walls you need to get, and also at the end of the day, you still got to set up and execute too. So make sure you are in good timing. Gonna have Lagonas all the way up top. This is something that we didn't see in the last couple of strategies, as they will be occupying T3, and it's starting to bubble to the surface as to why that Amaru ban came through.
Attackers dropped the diffuser.
This is a huge investment, by the way, is there's like this, almost like a house of mirrors being set up there. As you don't really know where the target is going to be, you're just going to have to pick, is it door number 1, 2, 3, or 4? 4 of the Kiva barriers used on T3. Makes me look a bit foolish. Mentalist is just going to go on in. Lagonas wins that fight. He's jumped on and then popped from above. Really good coordination here. Reaps tears right through Volps and Lagonas.
Went back to back, and he lost them both.
We call it the twofer.
0-2 on the jump shot there. Unfortunate. The first one, I would say, a little bit more of a layup as well, and just was not able to shut it down with that beautiful shot out of the ground. Nesk, though, power position here, very pivotal. He's able to get any bodies at all. This is going to be a very big moment. Her with the pre-fire there. I feel like he almost could have gotten more done if he just crept up, but more than likely not aware of the situation that was in front of him. 40 seconds remaining, though. Bleed starting to build things up for a stage plant here. Palu does have a few targets in the area. We still have a Bleed player all the way over on the cafe side too. Palu, that sixth sense. Hubbins coming through. Who's gonna win out this gunfight? The barrel! Oh my God, Palu! One shot, a TCSG to the face.
And with 20 seconds left, they've also got diffuser control. So not necessarily as important that they get the kills here, Sam, but they had the objective within their claws. Now, at that point, all Bleed can do...
Was that Case on the guy that came in the master balcony?
That's what I said.
You're
they had objective upstairs. So Case was inside a trophy with 25 seconds to go.
Oh, Bleed, we can't be doing that. Why is our Case all the way in Narnia? That is, you can't do that. The whole setup is to try and put that on stage, and you're all the way across the map. That's a country mile in Rainbow Six Siege terms. Absolutely insane, and something that you do not expect out of a professional roster like this. You expect the communication to be a little bit higher, but I digress. Bleed are going to lose that round because of it. It's a 4-2 split in favor of Liquid.
You talked about spray transfers, by the way. Immediately getting the Buck skeleton key kill and then pivoting, that's excellent. Nesk was just ready and prepared for this. 7 kills. Old Nesk is back, by the way.
This man is in his 30s. He is a father with a beautiful wife. I mean, what else can you ask of the guy? Amazing player. Like, dude, he's just thriving. In my lane, moisturized. Doing his best.
Flourishing.
Flourishing. Indeed.
Attackers are
4-2 here for
Locate a
Liquid
bomb and
now as
defuse
they're
it.
looking to try and get things going on this side of things now. You know, the offense is not really coming together for Bleed, but we can't say the same about Liquid just yet. We'll just be kicking things off. Do you have the Roteros in here? Like, do we have the Grim working his way back in as well? The other thing, actually, that I want to touch on with Grim really quickly, that they also added to him, those plumes are much bigger than when they came out on release. And that definitely assists a lot with keeping a few things locked up that you really couldn't before. It was just a little bit more difficult to get those things on the exact target that you wanted. But don't worry, Daddy Ubisoft fixed that up for us.
These are rad angles. You remember back in the day, you used to be able to shoot through those small bullet holes. Now you have to make your own. Volp's eliminating Turdsta early on. That's the Warden down. Warden is such a critical operator, by the way, in the later portion of a laundry supply defense, that losing Turdsta so early on means any obscurement that's thrown out by Liquid cannot really be battled. You see, there's absolutely no Womai. There's no Jaeger on the left side. So who's going to eat the flashbangs? Basically nobody at this point. There's 9 flashbangs on the side of Liquid, and there's no Warden remaining to deal with them. Terrible for Bleed. That's so bad. Of all the operators to lose, Azami is pretty bad as well. So is the Smoke. But man, you keep a Warden by pillar, quarterback your defense. In case there's any smokes or flashbangs, you're in a strong spot. They're not going to have that.
Yeah, interesting assault.
No,
Lagonis.
no.
He's going for the exothermic drop. Oh no!
He bottles it though. Completely bottled it.
Doesn't get the damage that he wants, but Liquid, they come out on top of the heap anyways, Parker. What is happening? God! That was all a distraction method. They have players in from Laundry and Freezer, and they get full control of the site. Just walk through.
Was it a 3-piece from Nesk as well?
Oh, my goodness gracious. It's because we were talking about how he was slowing down a little bit. You're like, he's getting a little bit older now. He hurt us. He most definitely hurt us. 9 kills for him as he's keeping up with these younger guys over on Bleed.
We said, yo, Nesk is not as good as he used to be, dude. And then Nesk is like, hold my every clip I've ever had of Laundry Supply Room, including probably the best clutch that has always circulated with him on Valkyrie.
The Black Dragon clip, right?
Yeah, way back when he was playing on Laundry Supply Room. From like that clip, by the way, is 7+. That's almost an 8-year-old clip.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy to think that.
It's so insane, right?
Yeah.
We've been around for a while now.
A child who was born the day that clip happened is now in grade 3.
Stop it. Don't do that to me, dude. Come on. I already have enough issue knowing that I started playing this game in beta the senior year of high school, and I'm now 27.
Oh, Sam, you're not a beta.
Sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes I feel beta. But then I wake up, I look myself in the mirror, I'm like, you're an alpha.
That's correct.
Sometimes
are you on that Sigma grind?
I'm trying to get there.
Yeah,
I'm trying to take some notes out of Laxing's book, but he just never lets me see it.
You think Laxing is a Sigma?
I've heard. That's what Fox says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Fox, of course, is the ultimate judge.
He is.
If Davide says it,
Bomb diffuser
he has
no reason to not believe it.
The ultimate vibe check. That's what Fox is.
Nesk didn't get a 3K. It ended up being a 2-piece, but
You wanted it to be a 3K so bad.
I mean, I so badly do. I have a soft spot for Nesk, and I mean, hey, I'm gonna be a biased caster for a second here. I'm not just talking in general. I think one of the best things that could happen for the history of this esport is Team Liquid winning a 6
Attackers
Invitational.
are
Now,
moving out to locate a bomb and defuse it.
they have only won a single international event, and that was Atlantic City way back.
2018?
2018.
Yep.
It was in spring 2018. Yeah, it's stuff like OGA Pit or whatever the hell else they won. It doesn't count. Nobody cares about that.
No.
Well, it's okay. Goodbye, Aspie.
Aspie's going to take a quick dirt nap. He'll be back hopefully in round 9 to readdress the situation that just befalled him.
Yeah, but it's not even just about wanting Nesk to do well. I mean, at the end of the day, I cast every match, Sam, like for the storyline and for the match. It is, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
We casted Liquid losing together in Yanshuping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I've casted Liquid losing more than any team winning, basically.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Liquid winning SI in Brazil would be probably one of the best storylines that you could write. Like, it all comes together. So,
I got goosebumps right now just thinking about it.
yeah. My greatest regret as a caster, and I don't regret it because it's not like I had a choice here. The one thing that I wish I'd done is I wish I casted Liquid winning Atlantic City. But obviously, wasn't really possible.
Yeah.
So
We did have that opportunity in Yongshiping, but BDS, they were just
They had another
too
idea.
strong. Yeah, they were too strong. Even
I
that
think you called
last...
them a tour de force, Sam. I believe that was. I believe you. Those were the words you used.
Yes.
And I think it was very correct. I think it was very apt.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I kind of melted our brains on that one, trying to figure things out. But I will say this, BDS really screwed up our last call because they just bowled over Liquid in that last round. And I was like, dude, I've never done a final call like this. Come on, give me a break. Reaps and Turd, they're going to find two.
It looked like, for a moment at least, this round was not over, but very close to being over yet again, as Liquid sunk their claws into the ripe underbelly of Bleed, but now Bleed has fought back. They've equalized the numbers with just a minute to go. No Finka remaining, so all damage that's been done to Liquid cannot be changed away. Flashbangs raining out. 2 flashbangs left, but you've got to use them effectively for the next 45 seconds.
Most
Bomb
definitely.
located by attackers.
Volps, he's actually going to work his way into Laundry, a trade here between these two. Volps, a huge moment for him, but the pre-fire, it goes so awry and it gives Turd all the information in the world. That's disgusting. A quad for Turd? What is this on the basement?
Well, Liquid had an opportunity to push it to match point and will obviously fall short. Bleed took their timeout. The Gambit paid off. And Liquid pushed one by one here. This was one of the rare rounds we've seen in a Team Liquid where they didn't really work as a unit. Yeah, Nesk, we get it. I'd be frustrated there too. But if you're going to allow these players on Bleed to punish you individually, they're going to take it every single time. And Bleed answers the way that Liquid assessed this bomb site and did so marvelously. Now, they go upstairs. This is a bomb site that Liquid has had trouble on so far. And I don't mean to say this in the sense that Bleed haven't been good on it, but both the Liquid defenses on this bomb site were downright bad for Liquid. Obviously, a bad team is not going to capitalize off of that. Bleed, with the way that they took map control over towards Master and then pushed through Closet, the way they were able to assess that games was completely free for the taking, read into Liquid's defense and cut through it like a hot knife through butter. Now Liquid need to figure out this site on the other side. How are they going to approach it? Well, they seem to think that the answer is an operator who is often banned and has been seldom played. It's the Ying of resets. So, alongside the Ying, you also bring a Gridlock. Where do you use those track stairs? Toss them over towards White Stairs, clear out security, take control of White Stairs. You get Ying on big window. You buck down below dorms, and then you start to have the remaining focus of your team go towards Master. Now you might notice that the only hard breach on the side of Liquid are those 2 can openers in the hands of resets. So his main job is probably going to be open up closet wall, get out of bedroom, get to big window. But you gotta live. And Bleed is fishing for opening picks right now through these open windows. And if they can get the Ying, hard pressed to imagine Liquid winning this round if Ying dies early.
Yeah, most definitely. Honestly, it's seeming though like they want to potentially get to... Well, it's a good thing that's implemented now, resets, isn't it? Yeah. Otherwise, somebody would have to try and run all the way across the map to come get you. But I'm very low HP, and also Nest not on Finka right now. Yep, for a split second, huh?
Volps, if you'd opened that up, it was all but over. You'll get droned in and assess if somebody's there on the other side. I don't think Volps has a good position on this. I think genuinely he loses this fight unless Nest can come to help him.
Oh my God!
I called it. I called it. There was no way he was winning that fight.
You didn't think it was going down that way, though.
I didn't know he would smoke him. He got sent to the Shadow Realm. But I knew that Reaps was going to win the gunfight because Reaps knew that they had meeting control. And it was just, again, a bit of sloppiness from Liquid on their drones. Their drones weren't in place fast enough. And you know that they're going to take meeting control. You stick somebody in that position. It was well read by Bleed. And it works. Reaps is a good player. He's going to be able to do that to you. And he's leading the way on his team right now with 11 kills. No surprise.
Looking very comfortable in the pocket right now. We'll be able to trade him out, but resets with a lot of damage dealt to him. Liquid on low time, and as Parker touched on earlier in the round, this is more than likely attempting to finish and probably a dorms / big window attack here. Probably not going for games, but as soon as I say that, we get a better look of where these offensive players are, and they've actually shifted gears over to Masters. So I'm going to take back what I said, because we might actually end up ending in a game's offense here. You can see Palu underneath as well, looking over for white stairs, or two of those angles that are starting to build up. But unfortunately enough, they don't have access to Volps anymore. That would have been the big piece to the puzzle there, as that skeleton key would have ripped back all of that flooring, making it really difficult for Bleed to try and exist inside.
So I think there's a big problem that Liquid had with their droning on this round, is that they didn't drone out that attic was half open. So Resets gets it open, but honestly, bigger problems strategy-wise that we can touch on, because now the plan is going down. Turrets does equalize the numbers. Resets is going to get collapsed upon. Where is Lagonis to stop this? Immediately on the diffuser, Lagonis needs to get in there. You got to go, Lagonis. You got to go, Lagonis. He's on the diffuser, Lagonis. What the hell are you doing, Liquid? You made so many mistakes that round. One of the most embarrassing rounds from Liquid I have seen in a long time. Missteps every single part of that round. You don't drone out T3. You send the Ying up there because you want to open attic wall, but half of it's already opened up. You don't expect a Frostbat up there, so next thing you know, the Ying is reduced to essentially rubble. You want to clear out meeting and go to kitchen, so you put somebody in meeting, but then you don't drone it, which allows Bleed to reposition. And when you do finally open it up, Bleed knows you've got map control, so you lose one of your best things for that bomb site, and you've lost vertical control. You don't have a buck below to put pressure on you. You decide to take control of games, but you have no vision on it, and the only guy watching it is 800 yards away, currently playing on Chalet. What is going on with Liquid in that round? All I can think about is that the pressure of Liquid in this particular matchup has got to them. They immediately slapped the timeout button, and they certainly need to fix something, because that round was downright embarrassing.
Yeah, that's just one of those scenarios where you really can't make excuses. It's just we need to wake up, guys. That is something that you cannot have go awry. He's stuck to that case, and the best part about the case inside of Siege is when they stick it, there's a huge buzzing noise. So you know what's going on. You more than likely know when they hop off, too. I think that the only thing that could have potentially been messing with him there, Parker, is the audio on the Bs.
That's what I have to imagine. I mean, you probably don't hear it also when you're going through a plane getting down and you're getting pressured. As you saw, there was fighting on white stairs, there's fighting over towards trophy, and you're in attic. There's probably a lot of team comms that are also blocking you from hearing it. But mother of God, you want to be one of the best teams in the world, you got to be better than that round, period.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're going to hold them to. I mean, Liquid has been a roster that has constantly been on the precipice of major success. And I mean, like Parker said earlier, for them to lift a hammer here, they're going to need rounds like that to never exist ever again. That's not something that you want on the main stage. That's not something that you want inside of a grand final. That's something that Liquid really hope to sweep under the rug and will hopefully fade off into existence with this event later on in history. Now, you have the Monty in play. Liquid going back to their basics to make sure that this round does not go awry.
No, I mean, you can't get much worse than that. It's an old saying, you can't jump out of a basement window. And in this particular instance, you quite literally can't, because the bomb site is downstairs. But you just, like, I'm hard-pressed to figure out a way that Liquid does worse than that. Now, the good news is that statistically, they're probably going to shake it off and do well. They've got the timeout. Teams tend to do really well in the immediate aftermath of a timeout. But holy smokes. You've had two opportunities to go on to match point. Not just map point, match point. And you built up this nice nest egg, but you're squandering it at this point. So hopefully the timeout works. Hopefully they settle themselves down, because Liquid are better than those last two rounds.
Yeah. Yep. Not something that you want to happen to you. Not something we expect to happen to Liquid, really. But yet here we are. Bleed applying the proper amount of pressure, especially from Reeps' sake. I mean, my God, 11 kills for him. Turret has also been able to find a lot of moments that have been highlighted throughout Oregon. Not only Oregon, but also Nighthaven Labs as well. Bonus, Nitro Cell in front of him. That splash damage still going to do a decent bit. Half HP gone. Do still have another explosive as well. He has a mute jammer on the other side. It will be a Puppets and EMP out will assist. As Volps will be able to at least get this single panel open as they're looking for this meeting plant.
This is a bad angle for Volps to take, and I'm glad that he doesn't engage in it, because small things like that, you can ego peek those angles against worse opponents, but time and time again, Bleed have proven over the last 3 days that they are the real deal. If Liquid have not discovered that by now, then they deserve to lose ultimately. Palu lurks down below now with 45 seconds left. The jig will be up as to where he is at. There goes Hoven, finished off.
Oh?
Stage control is now seemingly in Liquid, but they haven't droned out tower. And Aspie is able to pick off Palu. All the while, Resets dies elsewhere. Volps has been down, so it's just Nesk and Lagonis. Lagonis with the shield on his back, has Diffuser down,
Nice.
Beautiful shot by Nesk. The F90 is a terrific weapon, but now Lagonis can sit here in the doorway and is impervious to damage. The problem is, you have to get Nesk onto this, and there's 2 players from Bleed that are looking in that direction. It's Reaps and Lagonis in a 1v1, and the Monty's gonna play keep away. Reaps hopping on, the shield walking up, and it's over. I don't need to say anything that the gentle bonk of the shield says. And it's match point for Liquid, but still, it's a scare. It's a big scare for fans of Liquid.
That's, again, it's just one of those moments where you really expect them to have already checked things out simply because of what is happening in the strategy. And no one thought to drone T2 a big tower. That is something that you cannot overlook in big situations. Because what happens when that player is Doki? What happens when that player is some roamer that is just truly disgusting and will end an entire round just because you gave them a moment? That's the things you have to worry about, especially the deeper and deeper that you get in this tournament. And no knock against Bleed on that either. I mean, they've had some huge moments on the roam as well, but obviously Liquid still able to get things done inside of that round. And it's really been the Nesk show here, as we have had some other, pivotal moments for these players such as Palu and Lagonis, but Nesk 12-6 right now, 2.0 KD here on Oregon.
Back to the basement. Bleed will go after holding the main floor. For those of you, by the way, that heard when I said downstairs in the previous one, I was referring to downstairs from dorms upstairs. I didn't mean basement, but sometimes I need to be clear with my words. So it's a basement defense now for Bleed with the matchup on the line. These groups are all so tight that Bleed needs every point they can get. And honestly, they've been gifted a couple rounds here from Liquid. So even though you are not out of this map yet, I would still be frustrated because Liquid have had 2 chances to send this away now. Or rather, 2 chances to get to a 6th round in which they would have sent it away. And it's been squandered.
Yeah.
So if you're Bleed, with the way that they've played on defense so far, and I don't mean this disparagingly, but if you're Bleed, you kind of need a helping hand from Liquid to win the next 2 rounds to go to OT. If Liquid play like they played on Dorms 2 rounds ago, yeah, Bleed's gonna be able to skate on towards OT. But if Liquid play up to their level, it's gonna be just a straight shootout. And it might be really tough for Bleed to stay in this. All told, whether they win or lose this map, there will be teams who are gonna study this and see that Bleed has some very obvious issues with this map. And you can exploit those.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. There's a few gaps in Bleed's overall game plan that are pretty exploitable. But the main thing about this roster that makes them a force to be reckoned with is that they will just have these star-screaming moments where they will just blow you out of the water in gunfights, and all of a sudden there's nobody to fight back. That's really what we've seen out of Bleed in these hot to trot moments. We'll see if they can potentially get things going on for themselves yet again here. I know. It was loading up, and I was
great the first time. The second time I was like, it's good, but I mean,
that's a fair mark.
When they are hot to trot, though. I mean, you also got the trot in there because Liquid is a horse, and the horse can trot. It's genius, really.
But you say it for Bleed, and it's like, I mean, come on, buddy, come on. Minute remaining here now, though. It's Liquid sitting at the gates here, construction side. Do have that hatch open as well. It's going to be Volps that tries to influence Elbow with these flashes as Cadella will roll in. He sets that up to blind him immediately. Does seem like we have somebody playing over on the far side as well. What a shot from Volps. Resets will go down, though, so it's going to maintain the 4 versus 4. Nesk works his way in, trying to assist with this player over on the boiler side. Nesk will get 1. Mentalist, though, will finally add to the heap. He's kind of been quiet throughout this game. That'll be his 4th kill. It's up to Palu and Nesk, and we have sung their praises from the rooftops for years. And this could be another moment in their discography.
I mean, but if you look at it, you still got the Warden up, and that's the greater issue for me, is that Turtsta playing safer minutes this time is in a great spot. Palu has some deficiencies on Freezer. Nest gets down. No way for him to get back up, and Palu and Hoven will find themselves in a 1v1 with 10 seconds remaining. Palu on the hunt, but has given his position away by pulling trigger a little bit early, and will now get swung on by Hoven. I said they needed a helping hand, and they got it. Why? Because you didn't drone out Blue and you didn't drone out Pillar. They knew somebody was by Pillar. What happens? You shoot the bees in case somebody's playing on Blue. That's a good step. You toss 2 Candelas through Blue towards Yellow. Or towards Elbow. That's another good step. However, you don't capitalize off of it. If the whole point of throwing the Candelas is to paralyze somebody sitting on Elbow, then you need to immediately respond to that by taking map control in Blue or backstairs, put pressure on Pillar where you knew the Azami was playing, which is what happened, but then you don't have anybody to clear out Elbow. So what happens? He throws the 2 Candelas and he thinks Elbow's clear, he runs in and he gets killed. Why? Because you didn't actually do it. And what happened was, Bleed rotates out of Elbow and sends the Warden of Turtsta in there, so the next round of Candelas are there. And Reap stays on this position, who gets 2 kills from the doorway looking into Blue because you didn't Candela that off. Again, are you not droning it? Why are you wasting utility without following up on it? It is so frustrating to watch a team as good as Liquid make these boneheaded mistakes. And Bleed must be very happy that they're making it, because this is 3 rounds by my count that Bleed have picked up on defense that realistically Liquid had all of the tools to put together a win, but it blew up. So now it's down to 1 more round. Liquid have 1 last attempt. If they bottle this, it's overtime. And God help you if you're Liquid, looking at these rounds, knowing that you had the right to win this game, you didn't succeed. Now you need to go into OT. Bleed will have all that mental momentum. And honestly, at that point, I have next to no faith that Liquid's going to be able to pull it off. And map 3 at that point is almost a certainty. Liquid obviously like flashbangs. They're bringing, everybody's got flashbangs except for the EMPs in the hands of Nook. So if you're Warden, Turtsta, make sure you're using those glasses optimally, because none of you are going to be able to see a damn thing.
A bombardment is quickly approaching, as there is 12 flash grenades in total available to them. Nest, I think this is going to be a very, very quick play, but no, Turd kills Volts immediately. He kills 2, Parker. Oh my God. How has this happened? He has 1 HP. Nest kills Hoven, but Hoven really hasn't been here this whole game. Yeah, he won the clutch the last round, but that was his most pivotal moment. Oh my.
There are times when teams win rounds, and there are times when teams lose rounds. And I think that often we can get caught up in how poorly a team does, because it's really obvious, it's very easy. But I mean it when I say this. Liquid is throwing these rounds in the garbage, and I don't know what is going on with them. There is just, I don't know if they're choking, or I don't know if they've got too much confidence, but they are making mistakes that are uncharacteristic of this team, and it is really harming them. Again, huge kudos to Bleed for being able to capitalize off of it. But if I was a Liquid fan right now, I would look like Ace of Pyrite, because I'd have torn all my hair out.
I'm right there with you, my friend.
It's good that Neska's still in it. And honestly, Neska's been the only good player for Liquid over the last 5 rounds. So at least he is still up. Also, you got the closet partially opened. So if you can pick off Turtsta, Mentalist and Reaps are all that stand between you. Reaps has been excellent, and they should be seriously worried about him, especially the way that these 2 SAS operators of Smoke and Mute are played on this bomb site. SMG-11 to take care of White Stairs, Shotgun to take care of everything else. But you gotta get through Turtsta. You cannot allow somebody on 1 HP to continue punishing you. Mentalist getting in on the fun, Reaps now here as well, and we are almost certainly going to overtime. All Lagonas has is the shotgun. He gets trapped on the door. He thinks he can move through it. He gets caught on the door frame. Small stuff like this adds up. And now we go to OT. If I was, you know, when Bleed, all the way back, let's go back. Let's get into a time machine.
Okay.
Let's go back to the 2nd round of Nighthaven Labs.
All right.
This was by my count. How long ago was that? That was about 1 hour and 45 minutes ago. And I said, Bleed needs to stop looking so surprised when they win rounds. They should look surprised right now because they have 4 rounds that they shouldn't have really won because Liquid makes a whole bunch of mistakes, and then Liquid sit there and go, "We don't know what's happening." I have high expectations for both of these teams, but watching a team like Liquid make these mistakes baffles me.
Honestly, I'm just gonna toss this on the heap, and then we'll move on to the next thing for OT. But whoever's idea was to try and shoot the feet of the guy while your entire body is also through that barricade, what are we doing? Like, that is just asking to get shot and killed, and Turd just delivered immediately. You don't have a suppressor, you don't have anything. He can see the bullet trails hitting him in the legs, guys, okay? He's not stupid. He's gonna hit that shot because it's Turdsta, I promise. You guys are giving him way too much rope. It's not even like they're giving him an inch either. It's quite the issue right now. But Bleed, oh man, the other thing too, Parker, look at this. Bleed have OT defensive side.
Yep.
So they're gonna get 2 rounds of this, folks, in case you guys are a little bit newer to Siege Esports. It's a best of 3 rounds inside of group stage here, so it'll switch back and forth every single time. Bleed will go to offense after this one, and then back to defense for the very last.
I have no dog in this fight. I really like the players on Bleed. I think the underdog story that Bleed put together in Atlanta was excellent. I think it's one of the best stories we've had in probably about a year and a half.
Yeah, and Reeves is looking crazy. 17, 8, and 6 right now.
And honestly, this going to map 3 is excellent. I just wanted to go to map 3 because it deserves to go to map 3. I don't want it to go to map 3 because one team seemingly unlearning how to play Rainbow Six Siege the more this match goes on.
You go get the card again, and you just all of a sudden become a Karen. Like, what happens with that?
I know. I'm yelling at the store manager. I'd like to talk to the head of Team Liquid at the moment. Excuse me. I want a refund. I don't care which team wins this, but it's just, I have high expectations for both of these squads, and I genuinely have not seen a team lose the plot like we are seeing from Liquid in a long time. And I know that it might come across as bias. I can promise you, I do not give a damn if Liquid wins or loses, but they gotta be better than they're playing. Again, it's gonna fall a lot on the shoulders of the star players of Liquid. Palu has disappeared. Nesk is still showing up.
It's resets, my friend. Resets through this tournament so far before this game. He had a 1.28. He was the top player on this team. He's 3-9.
And I mean, we talked about it on Night 8 Labs. You know, Lagonis is usually the player who doesn't show up. The rest of the team is quite strong. And again, you need to use your utility properly. The Ying dying early is terrible from a utility perspective because where are you going to apply those Candelas? Where are they going to go on this take? Turdsta's going to thwart you now because he's going to be able to withstand the 3 flashbangs from Hibana, the 3 flashbangs from Palu. I love the Flores drill. I really, really do. I love that you can bring Flores and cut through the utility. Flores is one of the strongest operators on this map and is one of the strongest operators on this bomb site that you could possibly bring. Liquid is once again bringing the right tools. The setup from Bleed is just very standard at this point. So Liquid should know that. All 4 of the players remaining on Bleed, sitting inside the site. They're stacked up by Freezer, they're stacked up in hallway. There's nobody right now that's holding pillar. And Bleed have very smartly turned their focus to the bottom of Laundry stairs. Look at this Freezer hold. Liquid is just gonna walk right into it. Nest the only kill, it's all up to Palu in a 1v3. Liquid have not droned this out, and suddenly, Bleed have read the attack, they know where it's coming from, they don't need to expend resources elsewhere, and that wasn't even a bad round from Liquid. That was an excellent round from Bleed, they deserve that win, and now they sit on match point.
Oh, Liquid, all the sirens going off right now in their faces, you can see it. Every single one of these players wondering where things have gone wrong, scrabbling to try and find an answer. And the worst part about it, Parker, they've already used their timeout. Yep. There's no stopping this train.
You're in free fall at this point. Oh, sorry, I should have said derail. I
set you up so well.
I screwed it up. Oh, my God. I pulled a Liquid.
Well, you better pull a solid.
That was a great round from Bleed. I mean, they set up their defense amazingly. They knew that Liquid was coming through Freezer and Laundry, but this is so many ways that we now see this Oregon play out, right? Blue has not really been as huge of a focus, and after Liquid's last attempt on downstairs Laundry supply in this basement, you recall the deficiencies that they had clearing out Elbow and taking care of Pillar means that Liquid say, let's turn our focus elsewhere. Let's go to Freezer. Let's go to Laundry. But then you bring a Flores, which leads me to believe you have the tools to tackle elbow. Flores is one of the best operators, if not the best operator, to clear out utility in elbow.
Especially if it's not set up correctly. You know, they don't have a mute jammer on the shield or something like that. It's done.
But Bleed, in all defense of Bleed, they've been setting up that elbow site perfectly outside of Laundry Supply. The way they use the Kiba barriers on the E-Box door, the way they use Kiba barriers to keep their pillar players safe, the way that they have somebody who's not the Warden originally playing on elbow and then cycling that out is masterful from Bleed. But again, it's not impossible to cut through. And then you make big mistakes, some even small mistakes. You make big mistakes like Liquid has, and next thing you know, you're left scratching your head going, well, what did we do wrong? Well, you bring the tools to attack elbow and do exactly what you've done before, flash out elbow, take care of blue, take care of pillar with the Flores, but then you decide to go through freezer and laundry. You don't drone half of it out, and instead of having to cover 4 different angles, Bleed just needs to look in freezer and then you need to look at bottom of laundry. And honestly, kudos to Bleed for that. They absolutely deserve that round.
Unnecessary risk from Liquid leading to Bleed punishing them every step of the way. And Resets still not being able to find himself here on Oregon. He's 3-10 right now. A nice discovery there from Turd as he will bring one of those Rotero drones down the bottom of Freezer stairs and discover 2 people down low. See if Liquid can potentially try and get a pick early. That's what they were looking for there. Seeing somebody want to try and flirt with death on the Freezer stairs. Nice EMBs out. They'll throw those right here inside of Z because they do go through walls, obviously. That's going to be able to allow them to get that hatch. Mentalist already set that one off, and the main hatch here inside of meeting already dealt with. We have another EMP. We do. Reach is going to have to hightail it over here through Z. We'll solve that puzzle.
There you go. They'll get it open. If you remember one of the last times that Bleed decided to do this, they blew up their own X-Kairos over towards Freezer with that breach charge. So that's a big mistake from Bleed, but at the time, it certainly didn't seem like that huge of an issue. Again, a Flores will be brought out to clear out some of these barbed wire, some of the utility that's downstairs.
Oh.
I mean, you get out of it, but it takes a little bit of time, and then it gets jammed as well. Excellent counter to the Flores with the mute jammers.
Absolutely. Something you always have to be concerned about when you worry about this basement from the offensive perspective is where those mute jammers are going to be. Like we touched on before, you can have them inside of elbow or up on that shield that we see starting to get played a lot more often in construction, trying to hold things down, make sure those Rotero drones can't have any influence over that pivotal position. Reed's going to move his way in through Freezer. Good read on this situation. These Bs are eating up a lot of info, but it's going to be Neskapalu that gets some big kills, and oh, the perspective works out so well in the Kiba barrier. 2 big kills inside of Freezer. It's all down to Hoven, but I highly doubt he gets too far down the line. He works his way in, and he gets discovered by the Fear Nox, and well done as Liquid will pick up their defensive round in the basement. But now, it's 7-7. It takes all 15 here on Oregon, and Liquid have to get it done from the offensive side.
Yeah, I mean, relatively undisciplined round from Bleed, but they were getting thwarted by those mute jammers. You know, you have a seeking. Let me try again. Hold on a second. You have a sinking suspicion. Is that better?
Yes.
I nailed it this time. High five. No, come retrieve the stat dog. You have a sinking suspicion that somebody is going to be playing by Freezer, which is exactly where they are. The Kiba barrier gives it away. And something that we talk about is phantom pressure, which is kind of this nebulous term, which means a lot of things. But when you see a Kiba barrier position there as you do, you expect that somebody's going to be actively holding it.
Yeah.
If you can't drone it out, you need to approach it as if somebody is. So if Liquid is not actively defending it, you have to anticipate that somebody is there.
Yes.
Bleed, I don't think, paid it the respect it deserved, and they tried to double swing it, expecting that if somebody is there, we need to take advantage of the fact that the cross through that opening on Freezer wall into laundry was not being held. Let's try to get past it quickly. If there's somebody there, the 2 of us can fight it. The Kiba barrier really worked to Liquid's advantage. That was a great round from Liquid. A little bit of sloppiness from Bleed on their drone work, but again, big problem. They couldn't get through the drones. So unfortunately, Bleed is starved for information. They try to face check it. You can't really face check Liquid. They're going to punish you, especially if they've tailored that bomb site with the Kiba barriers to their specifics and their desires, which is exactly the case. Now, very final round. Liquid have yet another opportunity to send this one away 2-0. And there's a lot of weight on their shoulders, I have to imagine. This is the bomb site where I would argue everything fell apart for Team Liquid. So if they can regain that composure and keep comms clear, work together, and not lose somebody early, while most importantly, using their utility properly I think this is an easily winnable round. Nest is on Ying. I wonder if he deliberately took it because he wasn't confident in the way that the Ying was used before. But Liquid are so quick here. They're going on in.
No!
Reaps is down below and he makes them pay. He suspects somebody will push him security, but nobody does, and that will give pause to Liquid. They've lost Nesk. The Candelas are out. I liked what Liquid was trying to do, but it is answered back by Bleed, and there was no due diligence done. You're supposed to drone out security in the prep phase, but I don't think they got that far. And it's very likely that Reaps is sitting on mute jammers as well, so you're not going to know he's there. Excellently played by Bleed, and they completely deflate Liquid very early.
Look at how Liquid are trying to deal with this right now. Do they have the answer for this? Reeves fully blind, but they don't want to try and push through. He has a couple shots, but Reeves will finally be able to take him down. Does deal a lot of damage to him, though. 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining here. Palu and Resets, both on the bottom half of their HP bar as well.
Big expenditure of time and big expenditure as well of utility just to clear out security. Now, the whole point of security, the way they hold it, is to stop a big window take. So you gamble on that. If this is going to be a take through trophy where you take control of armory and stuff like that, then Reeves is going to swing up white stairs. But he's bought his team a lot of breathing room. And with the Candelas off the board, Bleed are in such a favorable position. They also pick off Volps. So now Bleed, with 45 seconds left, just needs to find the remainder of Palu and the remainder of Resets, which ultimately comes down to a single bullet. Palu equalizes. It's a 3v3. And not to write off Liquid, but Bleed have also taken some damage. Turdsta, a third of his HP gone. Hoven, down below half HP. This is anybody's game, quite literally. As this round determines, does Bleed go out? Hoven will swing on over. Aspie takes it. Turdsta propels Bleed to map number 3. Elatement and excitement sweeping across the APAC team as they humble Liquid on Oregon.
A map where Liquid started off on the defensive side. One of the most successful defensive maps at this event right now. And Liquid, of all people, cannot put it together. It's not something that we really expect. But I can tell you this, with Nesk especially, dropping 19 kills, that's a self-implosion of Liquid. There's no ifs, and, or buts about that. There was so many moments where they could have shut the door on Bleed and said, this is a 2-0, we're taking it here on Oregon. And now, well, we have Chalet up next. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the casting desk. It's these two beautiful people that you know. One of us is a little bit prettier than the other. It's Parker.
You know what? I have one word to describe those executes from Team Liquid.
What's that? You wore that on purpose, didn't you? You were gonna make a bit out of this at one moment in time today. Well, don't trust them, folks. I'm telling you.
See, I needed a little bit of help, and Liquid just so much provided that. However, we now have one more map to go, and who prevails? Bleed should be happy with that performance, but Liquid need to mentally reset. What's gonna happen? Is Bleed gonna surprise us, or is Liquid gonna regain their form? We'll find out in just a couple minutes.
Well, Bleed have almost done the unthinkable. They've brought it back on Oregon. They've sent us to Chalet. They're one map away from causing one of the biggest upsets we've had so far.
You thought it was over-relaxing.
To be fair, I put my notes down. I said, all right, we're going home. I was wrong. We're going to another round. Well, another game.
Yeah.
We should have known better. Bleed don't lose Oregon. They don't lose it in their regional leagues. They don't lose it to W7M. They're not going to lose it to Liquid. 15 rounds it took this time, but they managed to pull through. They lost the opening half, going down 4-2 at the split, made the comeback happen, made the OT happen. Really well done by Bleed, and I think they're starting to believe in themselves maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some given rounds. For sure, that we saw. I think you know, don't throw me under the bus. I think we all made a few comments like, oh, okay, that didn't happen. But no, I mean,
now you're throwing us under the bus.
Absolutely, we're all a one-man team here.
Yeah,
but no, I mean, Bleed has a lot to, you know, they showed up. They did what they needed to do to bring it back, bring it to round 15, and close it out beautifully. I mean, Turd just was going absolutely nuke right there, and then same with oh my god, Reaps.
Yeah.
Like, they both, in that defensive half, were completely, like, the two powerhouses of those rounds and just completely solidifying those defenses for them.
What's crazy was first half, even Bleed were showing up. There were a couple of really close rounds that kind of came down to ones, like it all over the shop.
Ness must have heard me talking crap.
Yeah, man. He was like, hey,
I shouldn't have said
hey, I'm sitting resets down and I'm going to come back into this. That's a scoreline and a half. But Jesse, this kind of sets us up for an interesting Chalet, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're starting to see everybody fire on all cylinders. Yeah. We got Nest showing up 19, Reaps with 18.
He must have heard you talking.
He must have. I mean, we talked about Reaps start of the day. Wasn't really performing yesterday. By God, is he today. But Chalet is going to be a really fun map because it's one that both these teams really are strong on. I think that Oregon, definitely a map that we thought would favor Bleed. Nighthaven, definitely a map that we thought would favor Liquid. Yeah. Now we're going to such an even playing field. But, I mean, the way that these teams played through on Oregon was really, really impressive. I'm glad you mentioned as well that Bleed also had some good moments on attack, because while they did lose the split 4-2, there were some insane flicks. Aspie stopping the flank, we're gonna see in a bit in round number 5, was absolutely incredible. And yeah, just watching some of these gunfights were really, really sick.
I mean, again, talking about Liquid here, I mean, they were so close to closing this out, and there was just these rounds, these gut-wrenching rounds. The Lagonis round, his teammate got shot in the head. Mentalist immediately stuck the plant, and Lagonis didn't know what to do. And then even into the last round, I mean, you gotta feel bad for Liquid, because like from player point of view, it sucks to be in that position because it's those small things that ruin the game, that ruin the round, the important rounds for that matter.
It's really hard to sit back and rewatch some of these, because there were a lot of moments where Liquid could have closed this out. And I know, you know, I'm sure Parker and Stokes probably had their bit to say in some of those rounds as well. But truthfully, this could have been done and dusted. But that's the resilience of an APAC team when they're firing.
Yeah, I mean, what we saw on that defensive half, I think, for Bleed coming through was just really solid gunfights, sitting in a corner, or sitting in sight, sitting in a power position, finding those players who are coming after you, and abusing sometimes when Liquid maybe weren't watching the right angle, maybe weren't being as clean as they needed to, right? Getting those advantages onto them. So, I mean, huge credit to Bleed on this game.
Well, you're going to need to be clean and concise going into this next game. There's no room for error. This is it. This is the points. I mean, Bleed need the points. Liquid need the points. You need to be clean here. And like you said, it's an even playing field. I couldn't tell you who I think is going to win this next game or who's going to pull out ahead. Both teams are firing on all cylinders. I mean, Nest dropping 19.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm not even saying anything at this point, because I feel like then I'm putting bad vibes on Bleed at that point.
Look, he might be dropping 19, but he also dropped into a window in the last round.
I mean, you should have. Yeah. Well, yeah. That last round. I mean, looking back here, you have Reaps below, and I don't know if they drone this or not, but you can't just assume that you can go for this for free, because it's slim pickings for Reaps. Like, if Nest stays alive there, whether he throws the flashbangs below to blind Reap and then can continue into kids, that round could have looked completely different. But that's the thing with Siege. Like, these are the small details that completely ruin a round, ruin your entire take. that you need to be cognizant of and be totally aware of and not let that happen.
In stage 2, Liquid had a 27% attacking win rate. Today, they were very sloppy. They again struggled with the same problems that we've been seeing from them, so I've still yet to see this problem really be answered for Team Liquid. They're going to get one more opportunity, and, you know, for their credit, this is a relatively attacker-sided map, so I'm hoping we see some good pushes coming out from Liquid, but they've got to be cleaner than what we saw right on that last map.
100%.
Well, this could be their first L for Liquid. This could be massive for Bleed. But of course, we've got a lot to get through. It's Chalet, Stokes, and Parker to run you through the action.
So we have mentally reset. The hope is as well that Liquid and Bleed have too. We are on Chalet as our third map. We will go somewhere quite different from here, which is hot Sao Paulo, to cold France. Now, we talked about win rates on various maps, and I asked you back when we went to Oregon, is it defender-sided? So I'll ask you the same question, Sam. Is Chalet defender-sided, and if so, by how much?
Well, actually, it's one of our lesser defender-sided maps, but with the current meta, it is still defender-sided. It's going to be 55% overall. The most winningest site, Parker, is actually Kitchen Dining, followed up by Bar Gaming. Wine Cellar Snowmobile, which used to be one of those sites sitting on the top of the heap on this map, is actually the least one site here, with the third most plays at 44% defensive win rate, but Master Office honestly isn't much better at a 45% defensive win rate. This is something that Liquid is going to have to consider as they move the bomb site around the map, as obviously they will be starting things out on defense. I'm really loving the bans that we're already seeing work their way in here, Parker. We've got the Grim off the board for Liquid. That is a huge thing to take away, especially when you're starting on the defensive side of the coin. We've seen these bees constantly be a nuisance for pivotal positions around many a map, but this one has some of the biggest ones. The one that always bubbles up to the surface being Library.
Yeah. Grim's pick rate has soared ever since the changes, and I think there's a couple things into it. Number one, Grim has been steadily buffed since debuting as an operator. Grim was in a very bad place, for those that don't know, and was basically not being picked in pro play, wasn't being picked in ranked, wasn't even being picked in casual, among the lowest pick rate of any operator in the game. And that's because, in all fairness, Grim was a very weak operator when he debuted.
You're telling me even the normies weren't picking Grim? That's crazy.
I don't like to refer to a good deal of our audience as normies.
Well, the people that play not ranked and, you know, just are here for the heck of it.
People, I like to refer to them as.
You are 100%
non-masochist.
You're talking about the average everyday Joe that actually appreciates their mental health.
I call them being happy enjoyers. They enjoy being happy and not subjecting themselves to wins of ranked, of any video game, not even just Rainbow Six.
Very true.
If you care for your mental health, do not play competitive video games.
Yeah, don't be a masochist like Parker and I, because we do terrible things to ourselves for ranked.
However, Grim obviously steady buff rate. Commando's a great weapon. Brings secondary hard breach. Lots of utility. You got 5 of those pods that shoot out the bees. They work excellently to push defenders back. You can isolate roamers. You can work them in a post plant. There's a lot of flexibility there on that operator. So removing Grim, I like that very much. And obviously Grim was an operator that's been used by a lot of teams, but Liquid assessed that we don't want to deal with the Grim. The Grim is being used too much by Bleed. Let's see what they can trot out instead. Now, the thing is that all 5 of the operators being run by Bleed are operators that they've already played so far today. And so none of them are really uncomfortable picks. And in fact, all 5 of them work very well on every single bomb site here on Chalet. First bomb site is going to be Bar Gaming on that middle floor. So you bring the Flores, that'll help you clear out the top floor. For vertical presence, you've also got the Buck to help you with that. And Liquid are getting back closer to the bomb site, but I don't think they're aware of how close the Buck of Reaps has already been able to get to the bomb site.
Do they have a sneaking suspicion about this? Obviously, they don't really have any presence over on the north side of the map, so this is something that they're hopefully aware of, that is a gap in their defense. No, Reap's actually going to take down Nesk, and he takes a gunfight, but Paulu's going to be able to take down Mentalist downstairs. Nobody really concerned with anybody roaming down low, and that's an immediate punishment. We'll also follow that up. A nice little find here to start things off on Chalet. Nice little switch up of fate from what we were seeing over on Oregon, so a breath of fresh air here for Liquid as these defenses starting to come back to bear. Reap's very low on HP as well after that initial volley and that duel that we saw with Nesk. But now Volps can just hightail it back to site. They've already gotten their job done for the most part on this top floor. Reaps really doesn't have anything to say about this game. If he breathes wrong, then somebody more than likely kills him. And Aspie and Turd, well, still a lot to do on this top floor. Got to get these hatches dealt with. And honestly, Parker, they're probably not looking for a plant until around like 25, 20 seconds.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Liquid didn't put more of an investment in library upstairs. I mean, obviously, it's a stylistic choice. You want to run a Wamai, you can keep an observation blocker in the corner. Oftentimes, it necessitates a Capitao to flush you out of that one library corner. But Liquid have instead given a lot of this away for free. And I think their extension is over just simply on the main floor. You saw early on in the round that Paul Lou was playing by library stairs. Maybe he was going to go up and potentially contest it. But I mean, you're a Solus. You don't want to be engaged in an early duel unless you know for a fact that you can come away from it. You talked about the final 20 seconds being the timer for this plant. This is this is a relatively good drop. That is a terrible shot by Volps. Aspie punishing him for that. And now Palu is getting chased out of the same position. Lagonis to the rescue. Prevent them from getting the diffuser for 2 seconds, and you can hang on. Liquid will do just that. I gotta say, a sloppy round from Liquid. Maybe they haven't been able to shake off those vibes from the previous map of Oregon, but they ultimately come out ahead. And a win is a win. Bleed won 4 rounds in the previous map.
A win is a win.
Bleed's going to look at those 4 rounds of the previous map. Maybe charitably we'll say 3 rounds that Liquid gifted them. And they're not going to complain and say, yeah, we didn't deserve them. They're going to say, yeah, we won them. But in this particular instance, this was still kind of a scary round from Liquid. And strategy-wise, I struggled to see what Liquid was doing in that round unless they were banking on the fact that Bleed would take a long time to drone and then would be slow to get the diffuser down, which ultimately is what ended up happening.
Pretty interesting, not really playing anybody inside of library. I'm definitely in agreement with you on that, but I think that they had the proper things implemented on that top floor to give them a hard time. They had that mirror window there. Volps also, showing presence there on mezzanine. So you have to worry too much about things unless things obviously went awry very quickly for him. Then everything is more than likely all for naught. They get the hatch control. They rip up the floorboards. Everybody's forced to play inside of bar stock / bar. You try and take some fights over there. Maybe apply some presence over inside a fireplace if you really want to, and then go about things that way. But honestly, like the big thing there for me, Parker, was just the very obvious communication error that happened with that plant, where Liquid just really didn't have anybody home to try and shut things down until the 11th hour, where it was literally moments away from getting planted, where Bleed should have never had a snowball's chance in hell in getting that case down.
Yeah, Aspie should have died, and that really should have been the end of the round. You can maybe keep some upstairs control, but that's it, Now, quick to get open the garage panel for Aspie, but it will be frozen by the Zoto canister thrown out by Tubarão.
You saw just 2 there, and one just hit the door?
I only saw the one.
He's out of them now, so I do believe he ended up making an error there, man. Liquid just cannot buy a clean round, can they?
I mean, it was also, was it the laundry supply round, literally right after that fateful Dorms attack where they threw the Candela off the wrong beam or whatever, and it didn't go properly. And it's just like, how do you miss that? Like, just those small little mistakes add up so quickly. And if you're gambling on buying your team as much time by keeping a breach closed and you miss your Electric Claw or you misuse one of those Zoto canisters, that's potentially like 20 to 30 seconds that you've now just conceded that you were originally going to have safe. No longer safe because of the fact that your opponents can get in quicker. In this case, the Zoto canisters are there to delay time.
Well, the entirety of Bleed, minus I believe 1 character. Well, Reaps obviously working his way in from far door there for Trench. But it was only Mentalist that was inside there for a split second. But they've been able to find a gap here, get that wall open, take down Volps. And once again, Volps, we're playing the Warden. Let's slow it down just a tad bit. We got some smokes and other things that can be implemented. And Liquid, they're throwing themselves to the wolves right now. That's 2 kills that just shouldn't go down the way that they have. They're trying to stunt them here right at the doorstep, but there's really nothing to be done here. I mean, we still have some utility to try and back this up a bit, at least with, for Palu's sake, but they're just getting eaten alive. And Bleed literally haven't moved minus that drop, and they're going to get that kill. Is this a flawless round? It might well be. No, it won't, as Palu will finally kill somebody with that M590. But, I mean, Liquid look exacerbated right now. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I would be very frustrated if I was Liquid. I mean, stats-wise, this is a coin flip map. right? 55% in favor of the defense means that it's one of the friendlier maps to the attackers, but it still favors your side. And obviously, it's very heavily dependent on which bomb site you go to. Now, that Wine and Snowmobile bomb site is actually favored for the attackers, so it's not weird to see Bleed play so well there. What is weird is to see Liquid take 3 isolated gunfights and miss it. To see Nesk have a standing target in front of him, moving at slow speed and missing most of his shots. That's the weird stuff. But Bleed moved quickly to get open that garage door panel. That's a good start. Some teams will wait until the very end, but if there's a Tubarão in there, you can't afford to wait till the end. So now we've seen teams react by getting open that garage panel quicker. They immediately pivot over towards Wine and Trench. Reaps gets the pick by Trench. That's huge. You've now got map control of basically the exterior of the bomb site. And as long as one player of Bleed makes sure that you're not getting flanked or even plays above, you are in such a strong position to open up the rest of that bomb site, use whatever utility you have to flash or drone your way in, and then locate these last players and gun them down. Obviously, it's nice that you win your gunfights, which is what Bleed did, but strategy-wise, that execute from Bleed was relatively good, just as it was a little bit in the first round, even if it was slow. I don't really hate what I'm seeing from these teams so far through these 2 rounds, and honestly, but the way those first 2 rounds went, I'll give a small edge to Bleed, but I do think we're going to go deep into this match.
I totally agree with you. I think it was just a little bit of a miscalculation as to how Bleed were holding things down on that site, and Liquid got immediately stunted. And I mean, once you lose 3 bodies, what else are you really gonna do, right? Have to try and throw it at the wall and hope that it sticks, but Bleed battering and bruising Liquid up. Now that first round in their pocket. But doesn't mean that Liquid can't try and bring things back. Some interesting stuff working its way in. We got the castle barricade here that you saw earlier getting prepped. For some of our newer fans, we'll walk you through that one real quick. He's just smacking it a handful of times. They changed it a little while ago, so I think I have the number wrong. I want to say it's 9, so you smack it 8 times, but either way, I digress. He's prepping that to make sure that he only has to hit it 1 time, and it will open up for him, making it a little bit easier to try and rotate off if they end up trying to attack from a different area. But instead, oh no. Things are going to go a little wrong in 2 different ways. Number 1 for Bleed with losing Mentalist, obviously, but also that castle barricade getting blown up, as they did have the supporting angle there, but just not have the shots to be able to land.
Bleed's got plenty of time to get some drones in as well and figure out where the last of these players are, and they're not going to be thwarted by anything that could stop the drones. There's no Muter Mozzie present. They don't have to worry about a Vigil being on the board or anything that could potentially hunt them down, like a Solus. Even though Solus is actually available. We saw one in the very first round here.
Nice.
So, multi-layer execute from Bleed, and honestly, I don't hate what Bleed is trying to do. They thought they had Nesk. They flush him out. The problem is you flush him out right into the waiting arms of Hoven, who's not prepared for the engagement. They thought they would be able to trap Nesk and, like a frightened animal, collapse upon him. Instead, he was swinging out of the cage, and he's in such a favorable position right now. So if you're Bleed, at this point, with a Hibana and Capitao on the board, all you can really do is reposition. You got Capitao on Repel, but you're vulnerable. The Hibana can't really do too much, because if you start to open up the site, they're going to know where you're coming from, and everybody from Liquid is going to turn their attention in that direction. So what is Churchster going to do? He's going to sit outside and just buy time for his team. This round is effectively over. He doesn't even expose himself to Volps at all. Look at how long Volps has been outside. Bleed tried admirably, but Liquid was undeniably the better team in this round. And it was Bleed's inability to deal with Nesk in Bathroom that ultimately became their undoing. And unlike the previous round, Nesk didn't miss.
Most definitely. When his number was called this time around, he was more than good for it. Burns that guy alive on the Bathroom window, and immediately turns it back for the double kill later on from a very similar position. He just shifted over to the Bathroom door instead. Liquid with 2 rounds on this defense so far. A great find there from Volps. We didn't get to see that one earlier in the round, but nevertheless, a beauty, as he did use that impact to its fullest advantage to get rid of that air jab. Just because you set those things up on doors, folks, does not mean that that thing is sealed off for the rest of the round. You really have to concern yourself with a lot of different things, especially when those sound cues start popping through. 35 seconds remain in the prep phase here as we'll be shifting gears for Liquid. They're going to head back over to Bar and Gaming and try and get things figured out over here. No Mira this time around, though, Parker, so they're more than likely going to be playing this top floor a little differently, and also an operator that we've kind of seen go to the wayside in recent history because he lost that 1.5. Oryx is going to be here as well.
Yeah, this was an operator that we saw a couple times from Virtus Pro. They really do like the operator. And I mean, if you're going to play that hit and run style, Oryx is the best operator to do that. I know people kind of roll their eyes whenever I say this with Nick, but he's the fastest operator in the game. And there's good reason for that. He can tear through the walls. There's a lot of hatches. You can hit a quick shot, jump through lobby, get downstairs, and you got hatches to get your way right back up. Obviously, this counts that Liquid's not going to reinforce all of the hatches, which it doesn't look like they have done. You've got that one library hatch open. You've got the frost in the corner. And it really comes down to how you want to deploy it. I'm a fan of the way that Liquid is approaching this library hold because they're actually putting bodies up there now. They've opted against the Solus on this bomb site. Instead, they're going to go with operators that can slow you down and deny you information. The Mute's on the board. The Frost is on the board. You've got an Oryx who will require consistent droning, and here's why. Volps has made his way over towards Trophy. You're not expecting somebody to come and hop in through that window and immediately come face-to-face with the Oryx in Kitchen. And what does he do? He immediately repositions. So he's been able to get away, and now Bleed has to go back onto drones. Excellent start for Liquid.
Such a miscalculation there from Bleed. Not a single other person in the tri-state area to try and help this guy. This goes down. Very unfortunate for Reaps as well, as he was on a heater on that last map, but now he'll be sitting on the bench here for round 4. That's 2 kills to his name, though, so nothing to shake a stick at. He's at least been able to equalize here. Turd going to continue his business as he's got that Rotero drone in hand, looking to try and get things dealt with. One on the stairwell, but Rotero drone going to go down 2. Halfway through the round already, and Bleed doing their best to try and get things secured on this top floor. They got Mentalist working in their piano, and then Hoven as well in tow. He's over on double and should be trying to assist with this. They have to worry about Nesk as well as Lagonis. And not only that, they also have Palu over here on the blue stairs. So this entire defensive setup on the top floor still intact and more than healthy to battle back against the onslaught from Bleed that should be boiling over here at a moment's notice.
A lot of calm right now. Losing Reaps early is obviously a huge issue. Paul Liu is a monster and finds 2 picks in very quick succession. Hoven on low HP. Turds just still upright. No utility from either of them outside of 2 flashbangs. No gadgets that can be used. So this is just going to be a straight slugfest onto 5 players from Liquid. Liquid's been holding quite steady. That's a hell of a shot from Volps. From Mudroom, Turdsta gets 1, but these are probably unimpactful kills. And I say probably because there's still 30 seconds left, Sam. But Turdsta's trapped. Dead. Ness gets the kill. I don't know what Resets said in chat, and I'm not going to say it out loud. I can't imagine it's anything bad because he knows that he's on camera, but Liquid are obviously relieved. And despite that scare in round number 1 and then losing round number 2, this has been a mighty nice bounce back from Liquid.
Yeah, most definitely. These last 2 rounds especially, they've looked a lot more like themselves. Palu and Nesk especially getting some really big moments there. And I like that Volps has kind of righted his wrongs too. There's been so many moments throughout this series so far where if Volps was able to hit those critical moments in stride, then this series is probably already over. But now, I mean, in the 11th hour, it's okay. He's here, he's ready to play, and they're making the most of the situation that has befallen them. Lagonis and Resets, not exactly the most active on the board as of right now, but they're accomplishing a lot of other things that we just haven't been seen to come to fruition in the last couple of moments. So now Bleed here with the timeout. Going to try and discuss things on their end of the sites and see if these offenses can try and at least get something going here. That last round especially, Reaps going down so unbelievably early, and he's usually the catalyst for Bleed to get a lot of things accomplished, especially early on into their rounds.
Yeah, obviously a worrying sign that Bleed has decided to use their timeout when, if you really think about it, you are playing on the supposed worst side. You've still won a round. You came really close to winning the first round. This could realistically, yeah.
Palu also transferred for 2 kills there as well.
Yeah.
Man, I wish I was that good at video games in my 30s. I really hope.
Yeah. But, I mean, the fact that Bleed is called a timeout this early on suggests that they see something that they really don't like here. You almost win round number 1. You win round number 2. This could be a 2-2 game. Yes, the last 2 rounds were so obviously Liquid's. They were very dominant. But to call your timeout when you are on what is supposedly the tougher side suggests to me they had higher faith in their team than this point. Because if it were up to me, you look at it and it's like, okay, we lose 4-2 in the first half to Liquid. That's not normal for Chalet, but it's acceptable. If something goes bad on the second half, then we can do it. Because obviously, if we're not winning our defenses, there's a huge problem.
Maybe something that Bleed is going to concern themselves with is this round right here, paramount to their success. It is a requirement for them to get at least, at a bare minimum, Parker, one more offensive round. If this is a 5-1 split going the way of Liquid, I mean, all of the alarms, every siren you know, more than likely going off there. So Reaps works his way in here for the Bar Games side, gets his way back into Bar stock. Nobody really in the area that he's going to have to concern himself with all that much. Liquid playing things a little closer to the chest. He does have Volps over here on the blue stairs, so if he chooses that path, then more than likely we'll run into a combatant. But as of right now, things have been smooth sailing. Volps is going to head downstairs, though. Potential flank coming through, but no, he's going to immediately run over towards West Main more than likely. We can just wait downstairs until another flank opportunity arises.
Well, Reeves had those first 2 picks in round number 1, if I recall, and since then he's been very, very quiet. On his first death in the previous round, which is unideal with the position that he plays. If a Thermite dies first, it's really bad. Really, really bad. If some of your mid-flex players die first, it's bad, but if you have your main point of entry going negative on that, then obviously that's terrible. And Reeps almost gets Volps on that crossover. Now he'll have to deal with the Keepa barriers towards Office as he's given his position away. Nesk is very safe behind it. And unless there's an explosive that could be used to deal with it, Nesk will survive for a little while longer. Spending another Keepa barrier and now pushing out. That other wall in the Office will go off, or might even be below. I actually think Mentalist used that on the kitchen wall, Sam.
Yes, he most definitely did, opening things up for dining and seeing if they can potentially get a plant. And now Bleed, oh my, 3 big kills. Not a single answer from Liquid. It's down to Lagonis and resets. 45 seconds remaining, and what a shot from Turd, as he'll be able to take out resets. It's not just Lagonis. Does have a Nitro cell, knows that one is up top, but everything's been implemented now from Bleed in a flawless round because of it. Masterfully done, especially with the respect on the top floor that they gave to the setup. They wanted to make sure that they crossed their T's and dotted their I's, not allowing Liquid a single opportunity to bring themselves back into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say something that might seem a little controversial here, but they were really good at avoiding Liquid. And I mean, there are times where when you want to enter the map, you want to take engagements because you feel that it's favorable due to the fact that you have utility at your disposal. And there are times where you don't want to take those engagements because you have a greater goal, whether it be to get the diffuser in, whether it be to get another pick that maybe isn't a roamer, or even leave the roamers and make them have to come back to the site. But Bleed drones out Liquid, knows where they are, takes the fights that they know they can win. And in terms of confidence, that really did seem like one of the most confident rounds from Bleed on entry in a long time. And it pays off. I mean, obviously a flawless round is something you're always going to be happy with, but it was very methodical the way Bleed was able to weave around Liquid, ignore them until Liquid needed to move themselves, and then follow up with kills.
Yeah. Totally agree with you. And, you know, with that in mind, that's why I really love just the slow cadence that they decided to adopt as soon as they noticed what Nesk had going on inside the office. They're like, whoa, this is a little bit too much for right now. And if we misstep here, this is more than likely the round. So let's readdress this and see what's going on, and then we'll take a step forward. And it works masterfully for Bleed. I mean, that right there is more than likely just the coaching ability of Julio really showing its face. I mean, when you have a hammer in your cabinet, there's a reason.
Yeah. And Julio's been across multiple regions now. Obviously, he's the coach of APAC. He coached Europe. He played in LATAM. I think the only region he hasn't, major region, of course, and I apologize here because I still think in the old sense of the 4 regions. I think the only region of the big ones that we tend to watch is NA, right? Yep. He hasn't gone to Middle East or North Africa yet, of course. And I mean, he's technically been in South America, but he didn't coach a LATAM team. Though, if you want to be pedantic, he coached a LATAM team when it was called LATAM, and now it's called Brazil. So I mean, hey, whatever.
Yeah.
But we change words. That's fine. Julio obviously brings a ton of leadership to this team, and we talked about in Atlanta how Mentalist brought leadership to this team as well. Obviously, he first with that Aerowolf team, and then of course going on to Fnatic. He's been around the block
Aerowolf, oh my
ages.
gosh.
In goes Mentalist. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear. And he happens to be holding a diffuser. Oh my, the devil works in mysterious ways. Excellent coverage on the window from Aspie. Mentalist dies, but the job he needed to do is done. Unfortunately for Bleed, you are down in numbers at this point. Hoven knows there's somebody downstairs. He gets siege timing so hard, Sam. And now there's 30 seconds left for Bleed to just wait this out.
Well, it was a dirty deed, but it looks like it's been done dirt cheap, Parker. Bleed have been completely screwed over here. They get the case down. Reeps is the only one alive, and they don't even have him inside a kitchen. That right there is a complete oversight. Little suspect on that one right there, but I do believe that he was trying to play the rappel instead and just realized that if he swings that window by himself, he's more than likely just going to die instantaneously. But you really want that verticality there. There's soft destruction available to you. You know, if he's already in that situation downstairs in kitchen, then maybe that round goes a little bit differently. But I digress. Bleed. 2 rounds on their offensive side. Liquid now shoe on the other foot as they will be taking a hold of the reins on this end of things. Very well set up on that defense, I must say.
Yeah. I really do wish I could speak Portuguese. I don't know exactly what is being said in the chat. Apparently, Bora men means like let's go, like men, like isn't like let's hurry up or something like that. Or maybe it's a rallying call for his team. I'm not sure. First half, obviously, going in. And the scoreline tells you exactly what you need to see is Liquid had some really good looks, as did Bleed. Both teams should have something to be proud of in that particular round, but what a retake it was from Liquid. They've basically forfeited the site. Liquid's done this time and time again. Obviously the one that I think jumps out the most. They won Atlantic City by knocking off G2 on border, at least in that one map, by a retake on that Vents Workshop bomb site.
And you can't even say it was a different G, like a bad G2 either. It was Fabian's G2, which, you know, if you let him argue it, he would say is the best G2 ever. So,
I mean, Liquid was great in Atlantic City. People will say that they're fraudsters because they abused Ying and Lion, and do they not realize that every other team can do that as well? I mean, if you are a fan, and I have a note for everybody here, if you say that Liquid only won Atlantic City because they abused Lion and Ying, you are like offensively ignorant of the fact that every other team can do the exact same thing. What is stopping other teams from using Lion and Ying exactly the same way? Because you can argue that during the Mute Mozzie meta, teams could abuse Mute and Mozzie, and that's the only reason why SSG won. You could turn around and say that the only reason why certain teams won is because Kaid and Goyo were good at a period of time. Cope and seethe all you want. So, in this particular instance, what Liquid does is invite Bleed into the bomb site and then tear through them on the retake. And it was great. It worked out. You have to have a lot of faith in your team in the retake. And I don't think Bleed was anticipating how swiftly Liquid would strike back right after that diffuser got planted.
Yeah, most definitely. Give me a lot of flashbacks to CG Esports right there, Parker. Especially the TCSG brothers with ninjas in pajamas leading the way on that. Not a single person even considered that gun before that tournament. They just started bodying everybody. Oh my goodness. Double kill there from Turd, and this round is already done. Bleed, is it going to be a flawless round to kick things off on the offensive side of things? It won't, but Reeps is going to quickly nip that in the bud, as they'll only be able to get one. Round 7 goes the way of Bleed.
that was sojover.com.
You looked at your notes for 2 seconds, and the round was already over.
Literally started to take notes on the site rotations, and then I looked up, and the round was gone. So. Excellent. But honestly, like, this is what I said back in round number 2, right? I honestly think these teams are going to be incredibly evenly matched. And I know it's groups, and we're supposed to kind of treat group stages as, you know, the appetizer to the next course. Because they're groups. These are always high-stakes matches at the Six Invitational. But the stakes should rise as we go on. Both of these teams are competing like this is a grand final. And I'm loving the fact that we are having an APAC team actually show up right now.
Yeah.
No slander to the rest of the team, but the region has had a very tough 3 days. And I think there's loads of potential in APAC. But Bleed right now are unquestionably, in my mind, the best APAC team. I like what they're doing. I like their adaptations. I like how thorough they are. And that was a very methodical round for them. They've closed the gap within one. And it's going to be a seesaw. We're going to go up and down between attacks and defense. It's a 55 win rate for defenders, 45% win rate for the attackers. That means that almost every round is going to come down to a coin flip. And I feel like overtime is already a requirement for this matchup. It's a very different look from Oregon as well, where Bleed were okay, but Liquid was dreadful in that second half. Here we have both teams playing quite well, frankly.
I can tell you this. If I saw Paulu and Nesk 3-4 years ago with a Twitch and an Ashe, I would just get off the game immediately. I'd be like, all right, well, that round's yours, and so's probably the game. So Paulu's going to work his way in downstairs. This also might just be a mark of Liquid getting fed up with the situation and being like, okay, if Bleed wants to fight, we know how to do that too, and we're ready for it. So we'll see what Liquid can produce as... And I mean this wholeheartedly. They've basically reset themselves back to the most basic Liquid I could possibly think. If I made a lineup for Liquid, it would be this operator lineup. You got great drone work, especially coming in from resets and Lagonis as well. You got those Roteros, as well as the Bravo drones working their way in. And those things are so dang good in the current meta. You can get rid of defaults. You can get rid of anything electronic on the defense. It's just a beautiful sight. Paulu's going to step up to the plate, though. He's going to walk his way in as that had gotten stolen. That's why it faded away for a second. Nesk works his way in on the back end. It's a 3 versus 3 now. Paulu has security over bar. Get a drone in there, and the plant now starts going down. That mirror window, though, it's been shattered, so he can't see through that. He's going to have to concern himself with it. And Bleed didn't have that hatch control either, so all of this is just extremely worrisome.
So Bleed basically vacated the site as well, hoping to go and re-engage in a post plan. One player from Bleed is almost certainly going to go up to Library and go up for a jump out to try and stop these outside players. And it's prepped and ready, but Liquid knows this. They've got 2 players outside. You have to bait one of them in right now. They've got the attention of Nesk. Lagonis cannot keep his eyes off of the diffuser. Nesk, a bit of sloppiness. Reaps is sitting on the diffuser. Nesk is last alive. I don't think he's going to get there in time. Bleed played that perfectly in the post plant. It looked like they had completely conceded the site and done so improperly. But the way that they were able to toil on that Library balcony, weaving around as Nesk could not get an angle from the position he's at, because the moment Nesk steps back to get a better angle, he now exposes himself to the window inside of games. So he can't take that engagement, which means that the 2 players there, Reaps, whether he's on the diffuser or not, can then turn around, take out Lagonis, leaving Nesk all alone, whose focus is on the defender above him. You don't win that fight, you got to pick your poison. Do you go after the diffuser knowing that somebody's going to be watching it, or do you go after the player who's above you who'll be able to kill you from that angle? Excellently done from Bleed. And like I said, this Chalet is in very stark contrast to what we saw on Oregon. These 2 teams are genuinely competing well. Lagonis goes for the swing because it's the right move to make, but Turds outduels him because he's letting Reap sit on the diffuser. All the while, you've also got the player from Bleed above on the Library balcony, which Nesk knew was coming.
Yeah.
But just because you know it's going to happen doesn't mean you can stop it. And now we got a tie game.
Once again, Liquid, a couple of things bubbling up that you don't really expect to be happening. And the big moment right now for me, Parker, has got to be resets. He's 0-5 through 8 rounds thus far. And not only that, he's the #1 player statistically right now for Liquid. And this has been across 2 maps that we've basically not seen him at all. I mean, I think he had over 10 deaths in the last map too. So between these 2, he's like 3-15, which is just not something you see out of resets. In fact, I can't even name a series where I've seen him completely ghost like this. So Liquid definitely hoping that resets can get something going for himself. A drone out here into Master to do some discovery work. We'll find a few Kiba barriers awaiting and hopefully maybe a gap in the defense that he can try and abuse. Does he have some angles to worry about over on the Solarium side here too. But a great moment here for Liquid to try and figure out exactly what Bleed is doing with this defensive setup.
Liquid's entry can be so formidable, Sam, but I'm just not sure of how they're going to approach this site. They've got Library, which isn't being held, which is not unusual. Some teams like to hold Library across multiple bomb sites because you know how impactful it can be. But right now, I think your bigger focus for Liquid is take charge of Solarium. Lagonis is heading in that direction. And ensure that nobody can get your cross.
Oh
Reed's taking down Nesk. It's also Volps. And suddenly, we're coming to blows. Last round, half the killing was done at the half-round mark. We're just over halfway, and there's only 4 people remaining.
Well, it's a 2 versus 2. Reset seemingly aware the Mentalist is in the area. Nobody wanting to move an inch, though. As we hear that subtle ping of the bomb chassis. You can practically hear a pin drop between these two right now.
I'm almost certain Mentalist can hear the movement from the Zofia, by the way, but just doesn't care because his focus is over towards Library. Liquid reduced to just Palu, the diffuser, is not within their grasp, but Palu almost pulls it off. But the vet of Mentalist able to shut him down. And now it's Bleed's map to lose. They take the lead.
If you can't tell from that face right there, ladies and gentlemen, Bleed not are only in the lead, but they're winning the battle on multiple fronts. The game battle. I thought you were going to pop for that. I'm sorry. It hasn't been around for a while. I know.
Game battles?
Oh. But
I'm sorry,
also,
I don't pop for competing platforms.
but also the mental battle. The mental warfare in between these two has been very successful. Bleed has been able to stay in high hopes. And it's hilarious as well, Parker, because we talked about this at the very beginning, how Bleed, even in bad moments, can figure things out for themselves. They don't have to concern themselves with these rounds that go bad. There's like, oh, well, water off the back. Everything is A-okay. We're just going to continue trying to figure out these issues going forward and seeing how we can potentially get some rounds off of Liquid. And it's gotten them this far. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think you understand how big of a deal this is, that Bleed has the opportunity in a best of 3 to beat Liquid. Especially with them, get this, picking Oregon as the second map and allowing Liquid to pick the side and still beating them there in a crazy defensive meta.
No, I think Bleed is the real deal, and I think anybody's fooling themselves if they're not paying attention to what we're witnessing from Bleed, because as much as I don't want people listening to our cast on Oregon, or maybe me in particular.
You are a hater.
And I am not. I'm actually not. I always come in and I'm always hopeful for a good matchup.
Player hater of the year, Parker.
I always approach it in a way that I want the teams to do well, and I have a lot of love for players on both of these squads. But the way that Liquid played on Oregon was egregiously bad, and I don't want people thinking that there's any kind of bias here from you or I, because there isn't. There's no bias at all. We're seeing now a much better matchup, and I don't want to take anything away from Bleed, because I'd absolutely hate it if a team that's only played, a dozen international events at this, or a dozen international matches at this point, thinks that I'm punching down on them. Because the fact of the matter is that Bleed in Atlanta was a top 8 team. Bleed are now showing that they are, at worst, a top 16 team here, and they're bringing the heat. They get the first pick against Ness, gets traded back right away. But Bleed really did the bare minimum on Oregon. They didn't need to. They allowed Liquid to make those mistakes, and they didn't even need to capitalize over them because Liquid tripped over themselves to make sure that Bleed was winning those rounds. Now here on Chalet, we're seeing the opposite. On Chalet, we are seeing both teams make small mistakes, but ultimately, they're both playing up to the potential that I think they have. Liquid are making more mistakes than Bleed, but Bleed is still capitalizing on them. And the mistakes that Bleed are making, Liquid is capitalizing on. So you have to highlight that, as we are. And Bleed are the real deal. There's a very, very real possibility that Bleed wins this map without going to overtime right now, given the score.
I mean, if this does go off without a hitch, what a story for Mentalist, right? I mean, this guy has been through it in Rainbow Six Siege. I mean, Parker, you and I have been casting this guy for over 5+ years, all the way back when he was playing on Fnatic, which we haven't seen in, 4 years? Truly insane that this man has been able to work his way back into not only a team that's here at an international stage, but damn, making it happen up against some of the best Siege players in the whole world.
Yeah, victory here for Bleed all but assures that they're going to make it out of the group. I mean, obviously it's possible if they don't, but I like Bleed's chances if they prevail. And this is a tough group, but you got to get through Chalet first. And if you got Reaps on the board, there's always a chance. He manages to gun down Volps. Nesk is having a quiet Chalet, which is not good right now for Liquid. But again, the player you don't want to highlight is Resets. 1 in 6. I don't know if it's utilization. I don't know what it is, but this is a poor go for him. Oh, it's all up to Palu now, Sam, with 30 seconds remaining. He equalizes. It's him versus Mentalist. Can Mentalist clutch another round? Palu chasing his way down the stairs. I love that he goes on to drone here. You've got some time to figure this out. The case is on the ground. Have one of your teammates sit on it. You know he's in wine. He just evades your gaze playing behind the Kiba barrier. So Palu will creep up. The Kaid gets away, and it's a game of duck right now. It's a game of keep away. Palu up to the TCS. The Mentalist wins it. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
A stunning end to the round, and now it's bleed on series point.
I can't believe it. Palu is even shocked there. He tried to do absolutely everything he could. He tried to put him in the spin cycle right there, Parker, but Mentalist head in the game on his shoulders tight, and Palu, oh man, you can see it in his face, ladies and gentlemen. That is one that he is most desperately going to want back, but the future is now, my friend. Bleed, they sit on the precipice of being able to take a best of 3 off of one of the best teams we've ever seen produced out of Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, when you talk to the teams, have FaZe, W7M, and Liquid likely doing well here. I mean, I'm not talking about just casual observers. Talking to the teams themselves, they seem to think that these teams are going to go far. Obviously, FaZe had their struggles yesterday. It happens. You bounce back, right? W7M didn't look like a perfect team in their matchup against M80, and they certainly didn't against VP today, but you bounce back. Now Liquid is being shown as mere mortals against Bleed. I mean, if you talk to Liquid after the match, they're not going to focus on Shelly. They're probably going to focus on Oregon. Maybe they do focus on Shelly just because it was the best of 3, but you're kidding yourself if you think that this wasn't Liquid's matchup to 2-0, because it was, and I hate to harp on the point, but this very easily could have been finished on Oregon if Liquid hadn't committed a series of unfortunate events. So here we are, very fateful round. Bleed could potentially be 2 minutes and 40 seconds away from, I don't want to say an upset because they're here for a reason, but even to the final map, Community had Liquid in the lead.
Thank you. I was going to say, and it wasn't even a close margin either. It was like 80, 75%.
I think the last map closed down to like 60-30 or 50-30
Okay.
or 50-40 or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it was closer, but you take an average poll of the teams as well, Bleed will surprise you. And they've certainly been surprising so far here. Liquid have potentially one more chance. They've got a guaranteed 2 more shots to throw this to OT, but they're not winning in regulation. And it's going to be made harder. They lose Nesk. They trade back on the Hoven. There goes Volps. Reaps is still very much in it, playing by piano. It's a masterful stroke as now Resets looks for kill number 2. He gets it. Continues onwards towards Kitchen. Utility still in the hands with those EE1Ds, and Resets will use 1. But he dies to Reaps. 3 kills for Reaps. Littering the ground with the goo mines as he scampers off. We're at the halfway point of the round, and it's just Palu. And mind you, he's not there either. A 4K from Reaps, and Liquid bleeds.
Not a single text in the chat. Liquid are completely shattered after this best of 3. Oh my goodness gracious. Not something that I expected when I sat in this chair, especially out of Resets. Just the mental math here, Parker. I mean, I do believe that he had like 5 kills across these last 2 maps.
Brutal for a player of his skill.
18 deaths. 18. You don't expect that out of Resets. He was the top of the Liquid roster before they came into this series, and Bleed completely shut him down.
Yeah.
Reaps especially making this roster uncomfortable. And you could say the same thing about Turdsta. Truly incredible stuff. I mean, you look at each one of these players, we saw some highlight moments out of them, but we look at Liquid, we look at their play inside of this series, and they're kind of looking like a shell of themselves right now. So we're really hoping that there is some potential for them to try and retool some things down the line and potentially learn something from this big loss to Bleed.
I mean, not all hope is lost. There's still a really strong chance that Liquid makes it out of the groups, makes it to next week where they'll continue to fight for a spot in the playoffs, in the main stage. And honestly, seeing Liquid on the stage in Brazil is something that you gotta cheer for if you're a fan of Rainbow Six Esports. But the story that Bleed is writing is in many ways just as good. This is an upstart team that is just continuing to improve and continuing to impress. And if I'm Bleed, I am absolutely stoked with that result.
I hate this guy. And that's where we're going to throw it to the desk because Ginny or Manic, I don't know who it is, much better than this dude. Go. Get away from me.
Yeah, you had a 50% chance to get it right and you got it wrong. But do you want to know who got it right? This man on the end here. I'm going to half claim you as part of OS, whether you like it or not.
Fair enough.
Turd, what a performance, my friend. How does it feel, the energy? How does it feel to beat such a massive team on such a big stage?
It feels surreal, man. Like, beating the fraud allegations for one is awesome. Finally had a good game, and against Liquid of all teams. Like, these guys are incredible, and I mean, they're going to make it out of groups anyway, so no worries.
Turd, there's something that Intero said when he was casting that I thought was fitting. It feels like every time you win a round, we go to your player cams and your whole team is just shocked. You're bewildered that you've beaten Liquid or W7M or whoever you might be going up against. What's the mentality like on Bleed? Do you think that's accurate?
We're in Group C, the group of death, so we're just trying to have as much fun as possible. Any round we win is like an extra, you know? Any round we win is just, wow, we got so lucky.
Wow, sometimes that's all you need to pick up the wins. And I mean, so far now, you've had 2 brilliant Oregons in a row. You beat W7M on it yesterday. You've beaten Liquid today. You're undefeated even through your regional leagues on that map. What makes it so powerful for you guys specifically? Why do you tend to love this map so much?
Oregon is where good teams go to die.
Okay. Some subtext there. Fair enough, though. All right. Let's talk about the last map then. We go to Chalet, and you seem to power up. Everybody else in this building right now is dead tired. It is super late in terms of these BO3s. It was a long, exhausting series after a 15-round Oregon. How do you have the energy in you to still put up such an incredible performance on this final map of the night?
I'm 3 Red Bulls deep. When I go back, I'm dead. I'm gone.
You got them jitters?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jess, anything else?
I think that's all for me.
Yeah. Well, as per usual, mate, we give everyone the floor. But from one APAC representative to another, let's go. Now, of course, for all the fans at home, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thanks to my friends, my family that all stay up late, like, to watch the games. Just feels really amazing, like, getting messages after the game, all the support. And yeah, thanks for all the new people supporting Bleed, this event. And yeah, thank you.
I think you're going to have a lot more after this one, mate. Congratulations on the victory, and let's get you out of groups.
Yeah, hopefully.
No, you're on your way, mate. You're on your way. And truthfully, no joke, they are well and truly off and running. This now means that they are in a position to make it out of groups. This victory right now is so monumental for a team like Bleed. It can't be understated.
If I were M80, I'd be worried right now. I'd be starting to get a little bit concerned. Oh, perfect for the standings to pop right up. They sit with 0 points. Bleed jump up into 3rd, vaulting over Liquid, who they just beat. They're, of course, tied with them, 3rd for 4th. We're really starting to get a good picture of what this group is going to look like. And for Bleed, I mean, much higher than people expected.
I mean, this is not how I thought this bracket was going to look. I mean, W7M, obvious one there, but I did have Liquid being up higher. So to see VP there again, I mean, I praise VP all day. They have phenomenally improved from where they were in Atlanta, and Bleed just winning this 2-1. Barn burner of a game by far. And you were talking about M80. I mean, NA, near airport. Oh boy.
Unfortunately,
next to rivals.
Well, you're not, like, there's no word of a lie. This really does put M80 in the worst possible position. We'll obviously talk about that a little bit later, as I think we'll still have to do that in the wrap-up. But the fact of the matter is, there were so many times in this matchup where Bleed could have almost just given up. There were so many times, like you said, Jesse, it's late. This has been a tiring best of 3. Every round they win, they're yelling and screaming.
Yeah, and they got, frankly, kind of slammed in that first half, right? Liquid were starting to run away with this game. They seemed like they were winning in the early games. They got 4 rounds, and then after that 4th round hit, Bleed got a defense, and another, and eventually they closed this one out. They go all the way. It's incredibly, it's a testament to their resilience, right? It's a testament to how much they want this to be able to stay up, to be able to grind, to never give up in this. And yeah, I'm so impressed by them to come through and win such a big game against Team Liquid.
Absolutely, and Reap specifically, man, like an absolute nightmare for Liquid. You know, you hear Palu, Nesk, Resets, any of those guys, Bleed, Reaps. Reaps. He's the Grim Reaper of Team Liquid this game. He was putting them on a spin cycle. I mean, there's nothing not to say about the entire team. And I also still want to talk about Julio, like how much of his, performance and what he brings to the team, expertise, talent, everything, like how much does that play into that game? And I would love to hear just what Julio would have to say about it, given that, again, he knows Liquid. He's been playing against them for such a long time. And I'm sure, no doubt, that plays heavy into how they play today.
I just kind of want to grab him and like throw you off for a second.
I would be cool with that because I just think it's important. I think even for viewers, like that would be important to figure out, like, because Julio does bring tons of experience. Yeah. He's a former SI world champion, came from Brazil, went to EU, now working in APAC. Like he's Mr. Worldwide.
He is, and now he's taken another team in a completely different fashion.
Absolutely.
And look, at this rate, like we can assume Bleed are almost going to be making playoffs if they haven't already. Then it's like, what happens from there? It's
me personally, I want to see them there.
Yeah, sure.
I'll say, as a NA bias representative, hold your horses, because M80, if they make a comeback, if they start playing better than what we've seen from them so far, they will give these teams a run for their money. Whether that's Bleed, who falls to that spot if M80 pop up, or if that's a team like Liquid, who now are, of course, tied with 4 points. So it's not done and dusted yet, all right?
No,
I know you're
yet.
excited for the APAC teams, but let's calm ourselves a
I'm
bit.
not even going to hide it.
I mean, I just want to go on record. I'm not an NA hater, okay? Let's just make that clear. It's just, I had high hopes for M80 coming into this, and seeing the performance that they're putting on, I was hopeful in the beginning because they looked really strong going against W7M, but now seeing these results later on, it's looking grim.